TitleMatchNetwork.com.
Welcome to another edition of the RF Video Shoot interview series. And when I tried to figure out who we could sit down with next, I said, who out there is better than Kanyon? And I don't have an answer. So that's why we're here with you, Kanyon. Thanks for being here today with RF Video. And I guess my very first question to you would be how you got started in the wrestling business.
Excuse me. When I was really young, my dad watched horse racing. And I grew up in New York City, in Sunnyside. I was 4 blocks from Sunnyside Gardens. And when I was about 6 years old, my dad watched horse racing on Channel 9, which is WR, in New York City. And that was 11:30 to 12. And then at 12, WWF came on. So I used to stay up to watch wrestling with him just to kind of bond with my dad at the age of 6. I think I was either 8 or 10. And he actually took me to Sunnyside Gardens. Had to sneak me in because they were pretty strict back then. And I just fell in love with it from a very early age. So around 10 or 12 is when I said I wanted to do this. I mean, at that age, I said I'm gonna do this. And then when I went to see Hogan win the belt,
right,
January 23rd of '84.
Right.
And then a few months later, May 29th, I believe, in the Meadowlands, Flair came and wrestled Steamboat. So that was all back to back. So I used to say this, and then after I said it for a few times on interviews, I realized it's kind of taking a shot at Hulk, and I definitely didn't mean that. I have a lot of respect for Hulk. But I used to say in January is when I fully decided I'm going to do this. In May, when I saw Flair, I decided I want to be good at this. No, and that's not a shot at Flair. I mean, not a shot at Hulk. It just means as much as Hulk connected with that crowd, and obviously he tore up that fucking crowd, 20,000 strong, and he got a lot more than Flair and Steamboat did. It was a big storm that night. I think Flair and Steamboat in the Meadowlands only drew, I think, $6,000, maybe 9,000, but it wasn't a full house. But there was a big difference. Hulk came out in 6 minutes, beat the Sheik. It was all fucking energy, electricity. It was exciting. I literally ripped my shirt off. Sweatshirt. I would have been 14 at the time. So I ripped off my shirt. I had a sweatshirt, so I wore it at home. But I mean, I really got caught up in it. And when I went to see the Night of Champions with Flair and Steamboat in the Meadowlands, it was called the Night of Champions, and I think there were 7 title matches. Tully Blanchard was on it, the Road Warriors, Jimmy Valiant. Carlos Colon was supposed to be on it, but I think he no-showed. Jake the Snake was on it. I mean, it's an incredible card.
I have it on video, handheld or something like that. I have it somewhere. It's boxed away because I can't sell it anymore because of legal reasons. But yeah, I've
been looking for that forever, dude. I think Craig Patrick. I think that was the guy's name. One of the guys who used to write for Apter.
Right.
Was at ringside. I remember taping it onto like a video disc.
Huh.
He had like a suitcase and you could see the video disc moving, and he was filming it. I thought directly onto that.
Yeah.
So I remember just thinking, well, this will come out on video, no big deal.
Right.
And then for years I've been looking for it. But I went with my uncle, my dad, my cousin John, and my best friend Tom Clark. And we were 4th row ringside for Flair Steamboat, dude. And my uncle was shitting on wrestling the whole fucking night. How could you watch this? This is so phony. Man, dude, I saw fucking Jake Blade. I saw the fucking Blade. I mean, it was kind of overwhelming to be that close. First time I sat that close. And it was, when you were that close, some of it was exposed, obviously. And but I'll tell you what, man, when my uncle sat there and watched Flair Steamboat, I think they did 29 minutes. And at the end, he looked at me and goes, now I understand why you like this.
Yeah.
He goes, I understand. Just because of what Flair... And that's when that was the whole... I tried to shorten the story when I said that's when I decided I want to be good. It wasn't so much I decided I want to be better athletically than Hulk, but I wanted to be able to do that. What Flair and Steamboat did to my uncle, I want to be able to do that for people.
Right.
Never got to do it, but... but, that's... from that point on, and I'll tell you, at the age of 14, that was really when I decided. At 10 or 12, I said I wanted to do it. At 14, I started saying, I'm going to do this. And I did remember that. When I was 14, people would always ask us about that age. I mean, going into high school, what do you want to do for a living? And I always remember my friends saying, I want to be a hockey player, I want to be a football player, I want to be a cop or whatever. And I never said I want to be. I always said, I'm going to be a wrestler. And it was just a mindset. It was like, I would not accept anything else, period. I mean, one way or the other, I was going to do this. Whether for a living or I was going to, spend 40 years on the fucking indies. One way or the other, I was going to do this. It was a different mindset, and I think that's why I made it.
How did you break into the business as far as getting trained and all that?
At 18, I wanted to... this is coffee, by the way.
That's cool.
It's not Scott Hall drink. And at 18, I wanted to go off and train. My parents... I was still living in Sunnyside, which is in Queens by Long Island City, Astoria, in that area. I wanted to go off and train to be a wrestler. And at 18, my parents said, well, either you can go off and do that and live on your own and support yourself, or we'll pay for college. And my best friend was a year older than me. He's actually only 3 months older, but I was born in January. He was born in November, so he was a year ahead of me in school. He'd already gone to University of Buffalo for his freshman year. So I was like, well, if they're going to pay for college, I might as well go hang with my best friend for 4 years. You know, I just wasn't ready to live on my own and pursue the wrestling thing. I mean, I would have tried to pursue the wrestling thing, but I think it would have been hard, you know, at 18. I never lived away from home. I thought this was a good halfway step. So I went to college for 4 years, studied physical therapy. Graduated in 92, but your senior year of physical therapy, you got to do internships.
Right.
3 6-week internships. I did one at NYU in Manhattan at the Ruskin Institute. And while I was there, right before Christmas, because I did it from January, you know, into February. When I came home from Christmas from school, my cousin called me and said that it's going to ruin the Christmas gift, but he's buying me a bunch of autographed pictures from WBAB, I think it was,
right,
on Long Island. John Orezzi, I think, was doing a show. And he was going to buy it from there, and since my cousin ordered it from him, he said, well, why don't you come down Sunday and pick it up? Cactus Jack and Missy Hyatt was going to be on the air. You can meet them. So my cousin said, well, can I invite my cousin? So when we went there, you know, to meet Cactus and Missy and, you know, John Orezzi and shit, there was a kid that was sitting in the lobby too waiting. And he introduced himself, and I recognized the name, and he was either being sued or he was suing Herb Abrams. So I knew the story because I'd been getting the sheets for a while. So me and him just started talking about Herb Abrams and wrestling in general, and my cousin's nuts. My cousin's legitimately nuts. He's about 2 or 3 years older than I am. He's just retired from the cops. But he wanted to put a wrestling ring in his backyard. Huh. So he would have been 21 at the time. He was going to buy a wrestling ring and put it in his backyard. So we asked this kid, where's there a ring? And he gave me the address of the Lower East Side Wrestling Gym. That was run by Pete McKay, Gonzalez, and Bobby Bold Eagle, Ishmael Harena. And it was down by the FDR, by the Manhattan Bridge. So I went down there. You know, I told my cousin, I'll go look into it for you. So I went down there, and, you know, we didn't know it was a school. We just thought it was a place that would build rings or something.
Right.
And I showed up, and it was a school. And Pete McKay met me there. And I expected an Irish guy. He was totally Spanish, Puerto Rican, I think. So he invites me into the gym and, you know, starts asking about the ring. He starts telling me about, you know, the ring and stuff. And I kept looking over at the ring because he had one set up. You know, it was a school. So I kept looking over, and I'm looking at him, and he has a twitch. He's doing this. And I was like, you know, and he noticed I kept looking at the ring. He goes, you want to get in there, don't you? I'm like, yeah. He's like, go ahead. So I got in there. I was bouncing around, taking bumps. And he said, come back Saturday. Because I have a bunch of guys come every Saturday. So I came back Saturday and immediately put me in there with guys. And, you know, I'd already been wrestling in the backyard with my friends and my cousin and at a youth center in Sunnyside. Every Monday and Friday, they had this, you know, this Catholic youth center. Right. I used to go there, set up the mats, and just wrestle. So I already kind of knew how to bump. I already, you know, somewhat. I knew, you know, a lot of moves. So I fit in pretty quick with the guys to the point where after a couple of weeks going on Saturday and wrestling with them, they actually held me down one day and thought that I was sent over by Johnny Rods as a spy to look into that school. Literally, that's what they said. You were sent by Johnny. I'm like, I don't know what you guys are talking about. And that was my first taste of weird politics in the business. And I said, no, I just love the business. So, you know, I ended up training there for a few months. Had my first match in April of '92. In Levittown, Long Island, Allen Trees Junior High School, Levittown, Long Island.
As far as the training goes, were you ever discouraged at all, or did you pretty much said you took to it right away? So
yeah, but the Power Twins were there. One. I used to go every day.
Right.
I used to do my. I kind of hid this from my parents because, you know, after they paid all that money for college, I don't think they wanted me to wrestle.
Yeah. Did they ever pressure you as far as you know?
I never told them I was doing this.
Okay.
And I never told them I was definitely going to wrestle. After that 18-year-old thing, I could tell they weren't into it.
Right.
When I said I wanted to do it when I was 18. So when I found the school, I hid it from them. And I told them I was going to the library after my internship every day. So I did the internship from 9 to 5. And I told them I was at the library all night, studying for my final thing, whatever the hell it was. Because you have to give a speech at the end.
Right.
Kind of in front of all the friggin' NYU friggin' teachers and shit. It was horrifying. So I hid it from my mom and dad. And like I said, I was going there. You asked me about anything dissuading me. Pete was great. Pete passed away a while ago. When I was in OVW after my knee injury, Pete passed away. But Pete was great. Bobby Bold Eagle, who's still, he just recontacted me on Facebook, actually. He's still around. I think he's in a band now, but he was phenomenal. He actually wrestled a few matches as Black Tiger.
Right.
Especially locally. I don't think he ever did it, but he used to fight Mark Rocco a lot. He wrestled Mark Rocco over in England. I think Rocco was the original Black Tiger. So, I think Bobby claims, and I believe him, that when Black Tiger came over here and wrestled in '83 or '84, that it wasn't really Mark Rocco. It was Bobby under the mask. And he had one match in the Garden. I was there for it. I remember seeing it. And it was phenomenal. And I go back and look at the tape. It looked a lot like Bobby. So I kind of believe it. Who the hell knows?
You watched a lot of tapes from Japan, too,
I forget when I started getting them. I started getting them. I got some, I knew about AAA before they did their pay-per-view. So I got all my friends to watch that because I knew it was going to be pretty good. Yeah, I had one of the biggest tapes. I had over 1,000 tapes at one point. And I had a landlord in Atlanta, threw them all out. What are you going to do?
Right.
But you asked if I got dissuaded. When I kept going to the training on the Lower East Side Gym, the Power Twins were there. I don't know if you remember them.
Yeah.
Back in the 90s. And one of them beat the fuck out of me. And I knew what he was doing.
Right.
Paying your dues, whatever the hell you want to call it. But, I really don't mind. I grew up with an older brother who pretty much beat my ass literally every day of my life from like 4 years old until I was like 16. So taking a beating, never, I don't like fighting. I hate fighting. I hate real fighting. I like it. I wouldn't mind doing some MMA. I've done some jiu-jitsu, but without striking. I'm not a big fan of getting punched in the face.
Yeah.
But, I also don't shy away from fights too often. I mean, I avoid the confrontation. I don't like the energy that's created when you have a confrontation like that. But, I'm not, them beating me up didn't really bother me. And the same thing in wrestling. When I got stiffed, that's why I think I bumped well and I timed my bumps well. Because I didn't mind if I got stiffed a little bit. I was used to getting hit. It didn't bother me. Some guys I think bump hurt, like Jeff Jarrett. And I love Jeff. I don't know if I'd say I love Jeff. I'm a fan somewhat of Jeff's. I have some respect for him. I also don't respect a few things he did, like when he held up Vince for money. I thought that was a scumbag move. But I think he bumps early. And I think a lot of bigger guys shy away. Kind of cringe when a punch is coming. Like who's the big guy in WWE now? The real big giant guy.
No, the other guy from India.
Yeah.
Kali. Yeah, Kali.
Kalish. I mean, he's one of the biggest guys ever in wrestling, and he shies away from punches.
Yeah.
It looks horrible. It's horrible. Some will say that looks real, but no, I don't think it does. I think it looks like he's a pussy. But there were other big guys that I always thought shied away, and so when the Power Twins taught me my lesson and broke me in and made me pay my dues, that was probably the only time I was a little dissuaded. I don't even think I was dissuaded. I just saw a dirty side of the business that I still don't like.
How did you develop your style?
At first, a lot of it was Flair, watching Flair.
Right.
I watch a lot of my old tapes, and I do a lot of his stuff early on. Even when I'm a babyface, at times I catch myself. I always went for the figure four. I use that in a lot of my matches. And I'd watch myself almost grab the ropes and try to catch, if I was a babyface, catch myself and stop myself from doing it. But Flair and Piper were my two big influences growing up, man. Piper.
Piper's the best heel of all time. I mean, he's my favorite.
That's funny because they're both such great talkers. That's probably what, as a kid, attracted me, because I guess that made them stand out.
I remember 11:35 every Saturday morning. You get ready just for Piper's Pit. That's the only reason I watched the TV.
I have one of the most unbelievable Flair and Piper tapes. Piper back from them. I just got a VCR when Piper showed up in WWE. So, dude, if they mentioned him in commentary, I put it on the tape.
Right.
Same thing with Flair when he was there in '91. If they mentioned him, it got put on this tape. But I got lucky. In '84, I had a friend that worked lighting for New York Union, New York, Pennsylvania. And he did a lot of TV tapings back in '83, '84. And he knew I was a Piper fan. He stole me one of the original Piper's Pit posters, and I still have it.
That's awesome.
I actually have it in the car for this convention. I should have brought it up.
That's pretty cool. That's actually
awesome. Because my thinking is there might not be another one of them. They may have never saved that stuff. I may have the only original Piper's Pit poster.
That's pretty cool.
It's awesome, dude.
What about Billy Kidman? When was the first time you met Billy?
Right out of college, I went down to South Carolina. I wrestled down there in '92. Trained at Mooley School. Met Sinister Minister Jim Mitchell.
Right, I was going to ask you how you met Jim too.
Yep, I met him right out of college.
Okay.
So I might as well stop there. I mean, if you're going to do a timeline. As a physical therapist, physical therapy to this day is still in high demand. So you can pretty much... I signed on with a traveling company out of California, and I would just tell them where I wanted to go. So my second half of my senior year, I started writing down anybody who wrote a letter to Meltzer from South Carolina.
The reader's page?
Yeah. If I saw their name, I wrote it down. one of them was Jeff Wilson, is his name. So I wrote his name down. He was one of the top on the list. One of the first guys I saw. So I picked South Carolina because I saw that was a hot spot for indies.
Right.
Pretty central. There's a lot of Greg Price was running there. He was actually using Rob Van Dam back then.
I remember.
Rob Zukowski. I actually wrote Zukowski a letter because he wrote one in and put his real address. And I wrote him a letter saying, I want to come down there and work. Can you help me out? He never responded. But he remembered the letter when I finally did meet him.
That's pretty cool.
And Greg and him used me well in South Carolina. They actually used to, every now and again, because we would do spot shows all over the place. So they would bring me in as champion and defending against him, and he'd win the belt every night.
Huh.
So I never actually hold the belt. I'd have it the night I got there, lose it to him. So they did that a couple of times. But when I got to South Carolina, right off the bat, they were doing a show in the Army. NWA was WCW at the time. I don't know if it was. Yeah, it would have been WCW at the time. And so I called up Jeff Wilson. Literally went to a phone book, and there was Wilson's a freaking common name. Huh. I got lucky. There was only 2 Jeffs, and I called him first. And he must have thought I was a nut. This guy's calling me off the Observer page and saying, do you want to drive from South Carolina to Atlanta to go watch wrestling in the Army? So we got to talk, and I told him I'd done some indies, so just a handful of indies, and, I've been trained. And he said, well, me and my friend will come over and meet you, and maybe we'll be able to hook you up, because my friend's a good manager. He does a lot of local shows as a manager. So him and Jim Mitchell showed up. And Jim took a liking to me right away and saw that I had talent. He saw the tapes. He saw, I was rough around the edges. I was working Mexican style. I was working right side of the body. I was working right arm, right leg at the time. Because that's the Lower East Side. That's how they taught me.
Right.
So there were some things they had to teach me, and but Jim took a liking. Jeff, who ended up, I think he still works in Georgia. It's something Bailey, J.W. Bailey or something.
Okay, yeah.
That's Jeff Wilson, believe it or not.
Wow.
So those 2 guys came over, and literally, I found out later that as soon as Jeff hung up with me, he called up Mitchell and goes, I got a mark. We're going to work him for as much money and as much booze as we can. So one of the things Jeff told me when they came over, make sure I had beer. So I had to give them beer. But Jim Mitchell's a weird dude, man. Jim's basically a shoot Satanist.
Yeah.
That's more of a shoot than people realize. But it's not what people think.
Right.
It has nothing. I don't even think he's religious at all. I don't think he believes in anything.
Right.
Satanism is, if you're interested, look it up. It has really nothing to do with religion. It's more survival of the fittest stuff. But he does have a heart, beyond that. And I think he didn't want to work me. He saw that I was a good person, and he saw I had talent. And right off the bat, he told me pretty quickly what Jeff was going to do. So Jeff wasn't invited back to the house too often. But Jim came over a lot and ended up crashing there a lot. Jim, at the time, was struggling.
Now, you teamed with Billy Kidman too early on, right?
Right after, after I spent 2 years in South Carolina.
Right.
And then I had enough. I'd been in the business about 2.5, 3 years. And I felt I wasn't progressing far enough or fast enough, and got fed up. Fed up with the indies, fed up with the bullshit, fed up with the indie politics. And said, fuck it, I'm going to quit. So I moved up to Connecticut. It's just a weird place to move if you're going to quit wrestling.
Exactly.
I used to drive from New York. Every weekend I'd go home to New York and hang out with my friends. And then I'd have to drive up 95. I lived in Wallingford and worked out of that. And I literally had to pass WWE headquarters every fucking weekend.
Right.
And I'm sitting there saying, no, I should quit this. This is stupid. I want to do this for a living. And it was like a constant reminder. Every weekend I had to see that fucking building.
Huh.
So, after 3 months in Connecticut, I'm like, I got to get back in. So I ended up moving to Pennsylvania just because I hated my job in Connecticut. So I said, I want to stay in the Northeast. Well, I'll start doing Northeast Indies. And I just happened to get a job in Allentown and didn't even know Alpha out of school. And within a few weeks of living there, I found Alpha out of school, went down. Alpha took a liking to me.
Right. And
when I got down there was this kid that was sitting in the corner that Alpha was. I don't think he was letting him train yet. He was too young. And it was Kidman. And pretty early on, he started training, or as soon as I got there, he just started. I think he wasn't being allowed to train yet. I think it was a few weeks later that Alpha finally said, all right, you can start training. And as soon as I got to Alpha school, I became one of the head trainers pretty much. I had 3 years experience. I was, definitely more experienced than any students coming in. He had some other guys that had been working for a while, but they hadn't, they weren't as dedicated as I was. Because I would go every night if I could. So any night he needed me, any show, I helped out. So, I pretty much helped train Kidman from the very beginning. And, I needed someone that could go. Me and him back then, we have one tape. I don't know if he still has it. I had it, but it got thrown out. 45 minutes just off the top of our heads, just me and him.
Right.
We taped it, and then after we watched, after we're done, we go over and watch it. And that's when I was getting tapes in Japan. And I saw Jushin Liger do the shooting stuff. And I said, Billy, I think you can do this. You know, actually, I called him Spider. I thought I said he's small like a spider monkey.
Huh.
So one of his first names was Spider, S-P-Y-D-R. Spider Gruner, maybe. But I said, Spider, I think you can do this. So he came over to my house. We watched a tape. He goes, yeah, I can do that. So we went down to school and we tried it. I think he still has film of both of us tried it, dude. Just absolutely killing myself every time, straight down.
Crash pads and all?
Yeah, we had I don't think it was a full-fledged one, though. I think it was like a half-ass one.
Right.
So I remember it was killing me every time. And he was nailing it almost right off the bat. And then I had a memory of when I first started going down to the Lower East Side gym. I think Bigelow was doing the moonsault, but not too many people were doing it. I'm like, you know what? I can do that move. So I started practicing it down at the Lower East Side. And some guy came in on Saturday, some guy who'd been around for a while. I think he'd been working 6 or 7 years. And I kept hitting it on either nothing or I'd lay out like a broom. So I'd make sure the timing and the positioning was right. And he goes, fuck the broom. And he laid down. I'm like, dude, no way I'm fucking doing this with you laying there. He goes, you're going to have to do it sooner or later.
All right.
So, you know, after that, and I don't even remember the guy's name, but I remember just thinking, wow, that was really nice for him to do that. You know, so right away, man, I said, do a few more on the pad. And I'm laying down, dude.
All right.
So he was scared too, but he pretty much hit it right. That is one of the scariest movies to lay down for.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my God. It's just the spin is so odd, and he's so close to the ropes. You're afraid for him. You're afraid for yourself. It's a horrible move to lay that for, but he pretty much hit it right off the bat.
How did you get into the WWF as a jab guy early on?
Yeah, a few people know I did that. Alpha had to deal with them.
Right, he was just sent to town up there?
Yeah, so, you know, and that's what WWE was really doing, mostly Northeast Indies. They had started Raw. I forget, when did they start Raw? Probably 93, 94?
Yeah.
Because Billy Firehawk passed away within a year or so ago, I think.
Yeah.
He was one of my first opponents in Lower East Side Wrestling Gym. And he kind of got a connection pretty early on with Raw, where he was kind of helping bring some guys in. So right off the bat, I called him back in 93 and said, dude, we'd be able to, you know, I went up there. He never got me into the Manhattan Center. But then by 95, when I was working for, you know, Alpha, he'd get me any Northeast TV taping. And my first one, back then they did mostly high school gyms. They weren't doing big buildings, at least for the TV taping. And my first one, we were in this huge room, man. The dressing room might have been the high school gym. And then, like, they had another little arena next to it. Because it's just this huge room where everybody's just kind of laid around, you know, sprawl, big stars and everybody just sitting there kind of getting dressed and had their own corner or whatever. It's a really big room. Not as big as a basketball court, but close. And first opponent was Diesel. And they told me straight up, man, they said, Diesel had just done a job on a pay-per-view, I think. And they said, he just lost, so he has to look strong. And they now told me, we're putting a strap on him. They said, so he's got to look good. We're going to put the strap on him. So he has to look strong against you. I don't give a fuck.
Right, exactly.
I'm on TV. I don't care. So I go out there, and Sean was his manager. And I do the deal with Diesel. And afterwards, man, I go back in and, you know, trying to be humble and stuff. And, man, Diesel did me right, dude. He walks in, and Alpha's on the far side of where Diesel walked in. And instead of Diesel kept going over to Alpha and saying, you know, he did a good job. He screams, Alpha, you brought over a good one. And he definitely did it intentionally, you know.
Right.
And him and Sean and Kid, 123 Kid, they all took a liking to me right off the bat.
I was going to ask you, is there anybody in the locker room you connected with?
Yeah, those guys right off the bat. To the point where, you know, I got Tony Green, I think, liked me too, because I played rugby in college, and I told him that once. And, you know, he's from Australia, and he liked rugby and stuff. So, and he was the guy that was in charge of putting, you know, the job guys with the stars. So I noticed he started putting me with guys that could go. You know, he put me out there with Owen Hart, which I love Owen. He was funny, but he gave me the stiffest dropkick of my entire life. He did the missile dropkick off the top. And it literally, man, almost knocked me out in the chest.
Right.
And shoot made me do a backflip. You know, I didn't do but I landed real high on my head and ended up on my belly from it. But as a shoot, man, I didn't expect that. Quang?
Right.
Quang?
Yeah.
Put me out there. That guy can go, man. He's not really remembered, but, man, that guy can go. They put me out there with him. Then they would critique me, and they said, you're not showing enough personality. So I said, all right. So the next time I went to, I think, Poughkeepsie, and I had a lot of friends come up from New York. So I went to Tony. I said, Tony, and I never asked for anybody because I just didn't think it was our job to ask for someone. But for my friends, I wanted a good match, so I asked for Kid. So I knew Kid liked me, and I just loved his style. I always liked Kid. So he put me out there with the Kid, and, man, poor Kid, man. They were fucking with him or something. He showed up late that day, though, so they were really fucking with him. And the one thing he let me do the moonsault. And he didn't let me hit, I didn't even ask to hit it. I asked if I could miss it. And I was like, I know it's one of the moves you do, so I understand if you don't want me to do it. I was like, but not everyone would let me. He goes, oh, I don't give a fuck. He goes, yeah. He goes, we'll do a deal where you miss it, and then I'll get up and I'll hit it. So he was cool about that Billy Gunn and his guy, and Billy and Bart. They let me do the moonsault too. Everyone else said no.
Huh.
Those guys are cool. But yeah, definitely Kid, Sean, and Nash. Those guys really. But it was the one thing that was frustrating because the Hardys were there at the exact same time, and me and Kidman, they always brought Kidman too, but they never used him ever. To the point once where Scott was really hurt. Scott Hall's shoulder was hurt. They put him out there with one of these big fat job guys. I was like, how the fuck? I was right there. He's telling Patterson, how the fuck am I going to put him up in the razor's edge? Look at this fat fuck. Right in front of the guy. I'm like, holy shit. He goes, you guys bring this fucking kid here, and he's pointing to Kidman. He goes, you bring this motherfucker here every fucking TV, and you never use him, and he's good. Let me work with him. And Pat had him come in and said, take off your shirt, which, we all knew about Pat at that point.
Right.
I looked at Kidman, he looked at me, I'm like, what you got to do, dude? But Pat just wanted to see how he looked without the shirt on for TV, and he went, yeah. So Scott goes, I'll tell you what, I'm going to go out there, I'm going to let this fat fuck beat the fuck out of me. I'm going to hit him with one punch and pin him.
All right.
Because he was pissed. He wanted to work with Kidman.
Wow.
He wanted someone to do this. But I think he ended up sitting the guy in the corner and then getting behind him and doing that.
Were any of the guys in WWE ever stiff with you besides Owen?
Fucking Bob. Right after the 1, 2, 3 Kid match, early in that match, Kid had me do a thing where, not Sean Waltman. I'm sure most people buy this to know that. But we did a thing where he would go for the tackle. Right off the bat, we locked up. He went for the tackle. Boom. But he took the bump. And then we did another thing. I loved it, and I hit him with a tackle, and I would fucking start flexing, tried to show personality.
Right.
And they liked that. So when I got to the back, they're like, finally, so that's what you got to do, man. It's a good personality, good heel personality. They said, keep doing it. So my next guy was Bob Holly. So Bob was giving me a shitload of offense, believe it or not. And Bob was just getting in, and he was doing the Sparky Plug gimmick, and he was not happy, I don't think, with that. Huh. But he was, he was doing what he could to get over. So all I'm thinking is personality. So we did an opening spot, and then he was going to give me offense for 4 minutes, I think, which was weird back then. So, and then at the very end, I think he was going to let me miss the moonsault too. And then he was going to do his comeback, boom, boom, boom.
Right.
His finishing back then, he was doing the Macho Man elbow, top rope elbow. So right off the bat, we do our opening spot, and finally I was going to cut him off, body slam him, and then that's when my offense would start. Well, as soon as I body slam him, I'm like, all right, personality. So I act like I'm driving him. With him right down there. And dude, I look down and I see in his face. He's like, motherfucker. And he rolls away. I'm like, oh, fuck. So he gets up in the car. I know it's coming to kick. So come in, kick, boom. Yes. He's like, come out for a close. Like, shoots me and I come out, dude. I do it, man. That fucking thing. I know it's coming, but I was like, I got to, piss them off. I got to take it. I told my dude, I had a sore throat literally for fucking 3 weeks. Yeah, for a clothesline, man. And he beat the fight. That fucking elbow was so fucking stiff, dude. Oh, brutal. But he did that fucking thing too with the Caponelli or whatever his name was. Tough enough, Matt. Yeah. Dude, I understand the aspect of paying your dues, and the Tough Enough kids, man, they got a good break. All of them, man. That's a good fucking lucky break they got. But man, there's ways to become a millionaire. You can work your ass off and earn $1 million, or you get lucky and hit the lottery. And I don't get mad at people who hit the lottery. Those fucking Tough Enough kids hit the lottery. For Bob to treat Matt the way he did, man, I just think it was wrong. I think it put a black mark on the business. I think it looked bad for a lot of people who were watching for the first time. And I just, I understand it's a tough business. It ain't chess, and fuck it. If you work a little snug, dude, I work snug. I don't give a fuck.
Right.
I'd rather work snug because it looks more real. Because I think back to fucking Night of Champions and being 4th row, and I hated seeing the space between the punch. So work snug. I don't give a fuck. But what he did to Matt was wrong.
A lot of people said that.
Not wrong.
Did you have any memories of Vince early on when you first met Vince back in the day? Or did you not really have much contact with him?
I always thought he was a dick.
Right.
Just kidding. I'll tell you what, man. I look back at those days, 95, as some of my best memories in wrestling because finally you get, to go from just indies, South Carolina indies in front of 100 people, and for Moolah sometimes literally 10 or 20 people, to working on TV, man. I did TV before. I did Smoky Mountain.
Right.
And Jim Jim treated me well in Smoky Mountain. He even gave me a tryout that I fucked up. So I'd done some TV, but and I remember calling my friends and saying, hey, it's on satellite dish. You had to have one of those ridiculous monster dishes back then. And some of my friends got to watch it up in New York, which I thought was cool. When you actually do the WWE TV tapings and you're on Raw and I was live against Tatanka, and fucking boy, that motherfucker gave me a lot of offense. And Cornette was going nuts putting me over. He was doing commentary.
Right.
So, man, look at this Kanyon go, because he knew me from Smokey.
Right.
To do that, man, and now you're here finally with the people you looked up to, you know. And I'd worked some shows. I worked the show Pez Watley and some guys that I'd seen on TV down in South Carolina. I got to work with, Jimmy Garvin. I worked some shows with some names, but now I'm on a fucking the show with nothing but names.
Right.
It's just a great, and the future just seems so limitless, man. And you're in the bar with these guys afterwards, and you're not on that level, but you're no longer just a fan or a guy on the indies, man.
Right.
You're one of the guys that's there and getting looked at. And, and I'm getting good feedback from almost everybody. And, and I mentioned before that the Hardys were there with us, and me, Kim, and that's when the click started, man. Razor and Sean and Kevin and the kid, man, they would sit in front of that monitor in front of everybody, dude, and just bury fucking people left and right. But they would also put people over, man. And I remember straight up Scott Hall one day, with me and Kidman sitting right there, and they were watching Jeff Hardy. And he goes, I don't know, motherfuckers. They need to sign this motherfucker now. Huh. And I remember being so fucking... I liked Matt and Jeff, even from back then. We knew each... we started... because we saw each other a lot of tapings. And I liked those guys, and I respected them. But, man, I was so fucking jealous when Scott said that, man. It pissed me off. I was like, fuck.
All right.
And it was funny because Kidman never did get to work. He may have done one. Me and him got to do a dark match in Allentown. But, so Kidman would always give me the feedback of what they would say about me when I'm in the ring. Right. He's always the stooge sitting there waiting, listening. And they would always get to me too, but they never said nothing like that. They never said, sign Kanyon now. So
You talked earlier about training with Moolah. Now, I think you were the only guy in the camp, right?
No.
There was other guys, okay.
Yeah, there was hardly any women.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Memories of some of the girls over there. Like, I think Diamond Lil was her name? Who's that?
Diamond Lil is the midget. And she called her, what the hell did she, my damn midget.
Right.
Where's my damn midget? But Diamond Lil lived there.
Okay.
Diamond Lil lived there, and May lived in a house with Moolah. And their garage was the school. And she lived on Moolah Drive, which South Carolina, Columbia loved her. And they had a, you turned onto Moolah Drive, and it was this winding road, and it went to this big property with 2 lakes, and she had a bunch of trailers. And I think a lot of the indie guys who would come and train also rented out a trailer from her.
Gotcha. Any good stories from that camp?
Oh. When I first got there, now that was right at, when I wrestled in the Northeast, I wrestled barefoot because I didn't have boots yet.
Right.
And then I went and bought shoot wrestling boots, like collegiate wrestling boots. So when I got down to South Carolina, Jim Mitchell told me straight up, we got to work this bitch. I said, you can't tell her you've just been working for fucking 3 months or 5 months. However, you've been working for 3 years. So he sets up the appointment. I'm going to go down and meet her. Well, as we're getting ready to do it, like a week early, he goes, he wanted to see my gear. I didn't have wrestling boots. He goes, motherfucker, we can't tell her you've been working for 3 years and you don't have boots. So I had to do this fast order, and like the day I was going down there to fucking meet her, these fucking boots come. So, dude, it's like a kid. I see these boots. It's like kind of validation. I'm a real wrestler, man. I got real boots. I got the equipment. So we go down there, and she goes, all right, honey, go in the ring. Let me see what you got. So, dude, I pull out these fucking crisp, brand new fucking boots, and I have no clue. I'm trying to lace them up, and they're really stiff. Just, honey, how old are those boots? I'm like, 3 years. So fucking Jim immediately knows that I'm fucking up. I have no idea. I think they look 3 years old. What the fuck do I know? So I get up, and Jim sees us snickering and shit. So Jim comes over and goes, well, fucking scuff up those boots. Scuff up the boots. Scuff up the boots. So, dude, I get up, and I start walking across the floor. Because he goes, the bottoms of them, he goes, they're like fucking the sun shining in my eyes. So I get up, and it's out. Thank God it's outdoors. It's like her...
parking lot?
Yeah, a little driveway parking lot. So I get up, and I start going across the floor. I went, shh, 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 shh. And I look back at her, and she just does this. But she had a smile. Right. She had a sense of humor about it, at least. She got me a couple of bookings. I ended up moving to Florence about a year later, in '93. And WWE Florence, South Carolina, just opened a new arena, and WWE was their first event. So she got me a booking with that, a tryout with one of her guys. And what she called a tryout. It was a favor to move.
Right.
It wasn't even an open match. I guess they had to start with their star, which I kind of assumed would be open, but we weren't. So I go backstage, and I was the second match I did the moonsault. Now, this is before I really met Sean. As soon as I come to the back, Perfect's there. And he's like, you fucked up. Huh. Dude, I had no idea Perfect's a river at this point. You know, it's Mr. Perfect. I'm looking up to this guy. He goes, you fucked up big time. I'm like, what'd I do? He goes, that fucking moonsault kid is fucking hot. 1, 2, 3, kid is pissed. Go apologize. So I'm scared shitless, you know? And I really think this is my fucking tryout. Little do I know. I mean, I don't think they fucking the agents watched it. So I go into the dressing room, kids getting dressed. I'm like,
was Sean in on it too or no?
No.
Okay.
So I'm like, Sean, I'm really sorry. He's like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, Kurt told me you watched the current and you were real pissed. He goes, I don't give a fuck. He goes, he's ribbing you, dude. He goes, let's rib him back. He goes, let's stop screaming, throwing shit around in here. So Sharon, he goes, like, when? He goes, now. He goes, what the fuck, dude? So I'm like, dude, I don't know any better. How the fuck am I supposed to know? I'm feeding into it now. And he's like, and he's telling me, come on, yeah. He starts throwing stuff, making noise. People fucking come running in and meet him. Like, at this point, have to be pulled apart. So we're working everybody else.
Right.
Like an idiot, dude. Like, I get so caught up in it. I start screaming shit like, man, I don't have Wade Keller putting me over every week, and that ain't how I'm getting my job. Right. I'm like shooting on Sean, and now I can tell he's really fucking getting mad because I'm a dumbass. Oh, man, fucking. I think, yeah, at the end of the night, Sean told Perk, because I wait, of course, like a monk. I wait for the whole show, of course. And then even after everybody's leaving, I want to be the last out of the building, whatever. So I was getting in my car, and Perfect goes, you motherfucker. Put my shit in the car. He goes, you motherfucker. Huh. You'll never get a rib over on me again. Right. And that was the end of it.
Were you nervous you were going to get heat from the office because you're fighting with one of their stars at all, or
no? Because I knew, I thought Sean would expose it right away.
Right.
Like we didn't even really work it out. It was more of a just do it, and we started doing it. I didn't know how it was. I didn't know what the payoff was.
Right.
I didn't know if people would come in, and then they'd come in, and he kept like doing it. So then,
right.
But then afterwards, I was like, I wonder if Sean really got mad because I started kind of shooting on him about the torch putting him over every week.
Yeah.
So I probably fucked that up. Who the fuck knows?
What about Memphis? You worked down there for a little bit, right?
Yeah, and when I was doing the TV tapings, Jarrett was up in WWE, and I went to him and said, "Dude, I'm 25 now. This would have been 95. Like I'm 25. I've been doing therapy for 3 years. It's time the shit will get off the pot."
Right.
That's like, do you have any stroke in Memphis? Can you get me down there? So he gave me the number of the guy and said he would call him. Never did, but he did give me the number.
Right.
Randy Hales, I believe his name was.
Okay.
And I called Randy and said, here's the deal, dude. I'm up in Pennsylvania. I just talked to Jeff. He said I could come down there. He's like, all right. And this was probably, I'm going to guess, March. I said, I'm going to give my job 2 months' notice. I'll come. I was like, well, I asked him when he could use me. He said, come down in May. I was like, all right, I'm going to give my job now, 2 months' notice. I'm going to tell him I'm done in May. So I did that. And then, I called him once between then. He said everything was cool. And then literally moved everything out of my apartment, put everything in my car. This other guy in Alpha School, J.S. Storm, me and him actually won the NEW tag belts from Osborne and someone else.
Glenn Osborne?
Yeah, Glenn Osborne and someone else. We beat them for the NEW tag belts. So me and him were going to do it. And I knew Memphis was a gimmick territory. So
right.
I was doing ECW at the time. Paul...
I remember you were down there doing the Rangers gimmick, right?
Yeah, so I started doing the hockey gimmick because the Rangers.
I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah, the Rangers just won the cup, so that's kind of how I came. And I figured Philadelphia Rangers, it's easy. So and Paul was cool with me doing it; he didn't give a fuck. So and I got there it was still Eastern when I started.
Yep.
And I was there the night Shane did the deal, and it became Extreme. I was actually there, and here's a weird story. I was there. I brought Kidman.
I remember.
And Kidman brought his cousin, who was about 10 years old at the time.
Right.
Mikey Betts, who ended up making it in TNA. But he was there that night too. I brought him backstage. He was only 10. Yeah. Huh. So that was a wild night, man. That was awesome. So, but Paul was cool. I mean, I think Paul saw something in me. Todd Gordon was the one who really took care of me, though. Like Paul didn't always want to pay me. Like they would tell me to show up at even house shows.
Right.
And then no one would ever bring up money, and then Todd would come over to me and say, "Man, did Paul tell you to come?" I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "Well, he said he doesn't want to pay you." Oh, whatever, am I gonna do, bitch?
Right.
But Todd always paid me, no matter what, even if it was just $100 or whatever. I don't really remember what it was. So Todd always treated me well, and Paul was good to me, but I still didn't really fully get the business. I don't think. Like, he wanted me and Stevie Richards and somebody else to go out there, and I forget who we were working, but he wanted us to miss a spot. Or blow a spot, I think is what he said.
Right.
And at the time, a blown spot, I really didn't know what he meant, man. So I think I did something as stupid, just as... He wanted to look like we fucked up. Like, you fucked up.
Right.
I thought he meant something like, I go for a moonsault and the guy misses. That's the blown spot. So I didn't fully understand the business. So, and I don't think Stevie did either, because...
He was into it,
Yeah, we both kind of kept missing things, and the payoff was 911 coming out and choke slamming us.
Right.
But it was going to be after we fucked up.
Right.
I don't think it was an ego thing where I don't want people to think I really blew a spot. But maybe there was part of that in there. I don't really remember. Because I remember both of us looking at each other like, when is he going to send him out? Like, but I guess we didn't blow a spot bad enough yet.
Right.
Paulie was waiting for us to blow a spot. We were just missing spots. And I think I kind of got confused on that. So I don't think I fully understood the business. So I can understand why Paulie didn't really go with me at that point.
Is that pretty much when I was going to ask you, whose idea was it for you not to come back, or you just kind of left it?
I was doing the hockey game. There was no talk of a contract or anything. Right. And I even when I left, it wasn't like I wasn't working consistently enough for him where I had to get permission to leave. I don't think.
I know you just did TV.
Maybe I was supposed to. I mean, like I said, I didn't fully get the business yet. But I talked to Jarrett, and the time was right for I figured, and when Randy was going to bring me in and use me, I was going to be a player. I was going to be on the road full time. ECW was still, remember, all he was really doing was
Sunday
pretty
TVs.
much a monthly,
Yeah.
He would do a Saturday night big show, basically quote unquote pay-per-view type show, and then that Sunday afternoon would be the TV tape.
Right.
So it wasn't like being on the road.
Any good road stories from Memphis?
Memphis was, I don't know if there's a good road story. I'll tell you who. I'll tell you. The day before I was going to go down there, I called up Randy again. I said, "All right, dude, tomorrow's the date. I'm driving down." He goes, "Oh, we don't have a spot." Now JS Storm backed out last minute. The final week, JS Storm backed out, and I didn't want to go down by myself.
Right.
And to Kidman's credit, man, that motherfucker said, "Yep, I'll go," just like that. And we got the hockey gimmick together. We're going to go down and do a hockey gimmick together. So we ended up going down there, and when I called Randy the day before, he said, "We don't have a spot for you." So I called up Kim and said, and I told Randy, I was like, "Well, dude, I already quit my job. I already got my car packed. I'll tell you what, buddy. I'm going to come down there. I'll get a job there if I have to. And then when you do have a spot, I'll be there. I won't have to come to you." And I was like, and I said straight up, I was like, "Do you mind if I show up at the TV anyway Saturday, just to watch?"
Right.
Which, I wanted to work, but, I just wanted to show him I was serious. I'm showing up. And to Kidman's credit, I said, "Dude, if you don't have to go, we don't have a spot. If you don't want to go, you don't have to go." He was young, man. He was a good bit younger than me, Kidman. "No, we'll go." So me and him drive down there, and as soon as we get there, we show up at TV. And first day, man, they tape TV Saturday mornings, which airs a week later in Nashville, but it airs live in Memphis.
Right.
So we do a live TV taping. So I show up to that, and I tell him who I am, and then poor Kidman, man, they immediately tell Kidman he's too small. So I felt bad for him, but they immediately put me out there against PG-13. Dundee's kid and Wolfie D. And I was the one that started taking that pile of DDT that Kidman ended up making look perfect. But I was one of the first that would take it and end up on my head basically. I'm lucky I have a flexible neck, and I would protect myself like this, but then as soon as I landed, I put them away, so I'd be still on my head. They just kind of collapse. So they didn't talk much. They didn't want to talk before the TV. So I was working PG, and they just said, "We'll call it out there, and I'll beat you with this." So we go out there, and Wolfie said, "All right, take over." So I cut him off, and I just did 1 or 2 moves, and then I figured it's time for him to take back off. So I just said DDT. So I shot him in, went for it, and boom. And that always got a good reaction when I did it in Smokey too. I did it for Cornette once for the Heavenly Bodies, and took the DDT spike myself, and Cornette was managing the Heavenly Bodies, and he's the boss. And he fucking, as soon as I did it, he hit the fucking mat and shoes. He goes, "You just earned your paycheck, brother." Screams it on TV. So I knew, from that, way back in Smokey, back in 92, 93, that bump would get a reaction. So I wanted to debut it right away, because I didn't know if I was going to get another shot.
Right.
So Wolfie fucking loved me from that point on. Even Lawler said, "Boy, you can bump," but I didn't really get, I wore a hockey outfit, and I had a hockey stick, and I had a Stanley Cup, and I made little hockey pucks out of I crushed paper cups and taped them with black tape, shot them out to the crowd.
Right.
But once that bell rang, I didn't do no fucking hockey stuff. Nothing, dude.
Huh.
Nothing. And, you know, if you watch the Goon, Bill Irwin, when he did it, man, he did hockey, man. He fucking, his boots look like skates. And,
right.
You know, so they were using me quite a bit, man. I was on the road 4 or 5 days a week, you know. But, dude, I was making $70,000 a year as a physical therapist. They were paying my rent, paying my utilities, because I was doing the traveling thing.
Right.
They're making $70,000. And I quit that. And fucking Memphis was paying me $40 a night. I was making $160 a week and putting about 12 to 1,600 miles on my car. And it was fucking tough. And, you know, and they were using me pretty good. I was happy. You know, I felt bad for Kidman. It was hard on Kidman. But I wasn't doing the gimmick right. And I really didn't know how to put a match together too well. And I didn't really know what a babyface comeback Philly was yet.
Right.
All that. I mean, I hadn't done enough TV. I'd done a lot of TV matches, and then the indie matches I was doing were just horrific. So Bill Dundee one day pulls me over and he goes, "What a hockey player is known for?" So I'm like, "Shooting?" I'm like, "No." I'm like, "Passing?" He goes, and I could see he's like getting really frustrated with me. And I'm telling you, at the time, I thought he was an absolute douchebag. And I was like, why is this motherfucker picking on me? Because then, you know, finally goes, "You stupid motherfucker, fighting. That's what they're known for, fighting." So when you go out there, he goes, you know, "Don't go out, don't do your moonsault, don't do this." He goes, "Just fucking drop your gloves, grab, you know, tell the guy not to take his jacket off and pull it over his head." And I'm sitting there thinking, I want to do my cool stuff.
Right.
I want to do my high spots. I want to do my fucking moonsault. I want to do fucking technical wrestling and, you know, shit I saw Japanese guys doing. And I remember thinking, man, it's weird, man, when you're fucking a young rookie, you think, I'm telling you, man, you know it all by the third year, and then by your 12th or 13th year, you finally start really learning. I mean, it's amazing. I mean, I thought he was a dick, and he probably more than anybody was looking out for me. And yet, the perspective at that time was he was fucking with me. Yeah, so it lasted a while, and then they cut the deal with which is weird, because they already cut the deal with WWE. And Vince was already starting his heel persona. He was practicing it in Memphis.
I remember, yeah.
And out of nowhere, they cut a deal with WCW at the same time, which was fucking weird now, because it's going to be WCW and WWF guys in the locker room. And to make room for those guys, and it was Kenny Kendall, I know, The Gambler, a few other guys came over from WCW to make room for them. They let a bunch of us go, and I was one of them. But they gave us 2 weeks, so there was that 2-week overlap with The Gambler and Kenny there. And Wolfie D, man, he came to me on my last night and said, "Dude," he goes, "I don't give a fuck about any of these motherfuckers." He said, "But it'll be a crime against wrestling if you quit the business." He said, "Do not fucking quit, because you have something. Stick with it." And that meant a lot, because I really looked up to Wolfie. Wolfie and Jamie were on top, man. It was them against Doug Gilbert and Tommy Rich were fucking the main event. So for the main event guy to come to me and tell me that. And I talked to Kenny Kendall, and I said, "Dude," he saw I was depressed, and he's like, "What's wrong, dude?" I said, I was like, "You know, they let me go because you guys." I'm like, "What should I do?" He's like, "Dude, how much you getting paid here?" I told him $40 a night, about $160 a week. He goes, "They're about to do a 10-day taping down to Disney." He goes, "You'll make more than that in one day." He said, "Get your ass down to Disney."
I was going to ask you how you get down there.
Yeah. So Kidman didn't want to do it. Kidman had enough of being too small. So he was going to go back to the Northeast, start doing indies. I drove to Atlanta. And I had about 4 days in between when I got to Atlanta and they were going to start the Disney taping. And he gave me the number of the power plant. But he didn't give me an address. I called up and I got Brenda, who was the secretary.
Right.
She was a fucking, she was always sweet once I got there. But
right.
Before I got there, and even she was a bitch. To play it straight up, a bitch.
Right.
She really was. To everybody, really. She was just a bitch. So she wouldn't tell me where the taping was. She wouldn't let me talk to Jody. She wouldn't do anything.
Huh.
So I was really getting fed up, man. I was in Atlanta 3 days. I called Moolah. I called Offa. Nobody had a number on Jody. So I was like, fuck, man. This, you know, I love Memphis. And my whole plan to go to WCW was literally go there to get sent back to Memphis because I loved it so much. I love being on the road. I love being one of the boys.
Right.
So I get to, so the plan was get to WCW, be noticed, so they send me back to Memphis. So within 3 days, I'm thinking, you know what, things were going so well. And when I got fired, it was tough to get fired from Memphis. You know, and I know there was a reason they were making room and shit, but still, to be one of those guys that got fired sucked. And then when it didn't work out, when I didn't get right to the power plant, I couldn't talk to Jody, I'm like, fuck it. And I was ready to quit. And I went to a bar in the middle of the afternoon right on Piedmont Avenue in Atlanta. And literally nobody except the bartender. And the kid just comes out to me and goes, "What's your story?" He's a young kid. And I said, I told him the whole story. He goes, "I'll just drive to Florida." And I wasn't. I was going to quit. I was literally about to fucking move back to New York. I was like, yeah, I don't know, dude. It just seems like fate is telling me this is the end of the road.
Right.
He's like, "No." He said, "Drive to Florida." He goes, "What do you have to lose? You know where they're taping it." He says, it's going to be Universal Studios, even if you got to pay for a ticket. Which on Memphis money, I couldn't afford it, but fuck it. So I was like, you know what? I have nothing to lose. And it was my last shot. So I drive down to fucking Florida, go into Universal Studios, bring my bag, bring my gear, which everybody else is just on the bus. They bus you in. And then they bus you right out. They don't let you stay in the park. So I got this huge bag. People's looking at me like I'm nuts. So I watched the first taping. That's actually when Austin got hurt. It's when Austin blew out his tricep, I think, on this taping. So I watched the first show, and then they make everybody leave the arena, the soundstage. And I immediately go down to the railing. And I see Doug Dillinger, and that's another dick.
Oh, I hate him too.
Douchebag.
Yeah, total.
So, dude, I'm sitting there at the railing, and I know Jody's name. That's all I know.
Right.
So I want to fucking say, I want to talk to Jody. And I see Doug, and I see him scouting me out. And he shakes his head, just a miserable fuck. Shakes his head and says, you motherfucker. And I see him walking to me. I'm like, oh, fuck. This fucking prick's going to throw me out.
I used to have problems with him all the time in Philadelphia at the Civic Center.
And out of nowhere, dude, I just see somebody standing over by the little entranceway for the wrestlers. And he's getting closer and closer. And I figure either he's going to throw me out or I got to get this lady's attention. And I think it ended up being Janie Angle. And at the time, I had no idea who she was. But now looking back, a few years later, like, I think that was Janie. I wish I would have asked her. And Janie Angle was Eric's secretary.
Right.
For those who don't know. And I think Terry Funk's sister-in-law, maybe?
I don't know.
She's related to Terry. That's how she got in the business. So I got her attention just as fuckface was getting to me. So he's standing there and he's like this, you motherfucker, how dare you even talk to anybody? And I said, hey, here's the deal. I've done Smoky Mountain. I wrestled with Moolah and Hoff. I did some WWE, and I just came from Memphis. I'm like, is there any way I can go talk to Jody? So she goes, hold on. So she walks in. Now I got to sit there. And I swear to God, the motherfucker is from here to here just staring at me.
Oh, I believe it.
And I don't know what to do. I'm like, hey, Doug. And he doesn't say a word. Finally, she comes back over to me. She goes, he'll see you. So I go back there, and Jody. Now, dude, obviously, this is my fucking time. I know. I'm not going to forget this. So Jody tells me, all right, this was early May tapings. He said, all right. He goes, I was like, is there any way I could, I told him my deal. He's like, all right. He said, go back up to Atlanta and meet me in the power plant on May 8th at 2 p.m. Now, dude, there's no way on God's green earth I'm going to forget this, right? And of course I wrote it down anyway, but I didn't need to. I mean, this is fucking, as soon as he said it, it's ingrained in my fucking brain. So I'm like, Jody, is there any way I can, get on taping now? I'm like, I was in Memphis. It was hard. I'm like, I didn't make shit there. I lost money. Like, can I please get a few matches? He goes, nope, already booked. All right, so I went back out and I watched a few more matches, and I walked around the park and watched some more matches. I drive back to Atlanta. Now I'm on cloud nine. At least I'm going to go fucking to the power line. So get there on May fucking 8th, 2 p.m. He goes, where the fuck were you, boy? I'm like, what? Like, I told you to be here yesterday at 8 a.m. Dude, I know for a fact this motherfucker did not say May 7th at 8 a.m. You can't confuse the two. So, of course, sorry. Oh, man, I thought the show. He said, nope, come tomorrow. So, no, he said May 10th for some reason. He skipped a day, I believe. He said, come at May 10th. He goes, not 2. Everyone's gone at 2. Come at 8. Oh, yeah. So, of course, I show up at 7:30.
Right.
Just in case, because I'm thinking he might be fucking with me again. So I show up, and Mike Winter was there. Mike Winter was one of their main trainers. And I don't know too many people know Mike. Mike ended up literally doing minute work with me for one match, I think. Maybe 2.
Right.
Everyone thinks he was the main guy. It was actually Mark Starr with me, and Mark got hurt. They didn't want to keep flying him into Atlanta, so they put Mike with me. And I like Mike, but he didn't fit the gimmick.
Did you like the gimmick?
I like that it wasn't a guy just getting beat.
Right.
I like that it was something. When it was first kind of proposed to us, it was kind of going to be a hardliner type gimmick. I guess I figured construction workers, but I thought it was bland.
Right.
I wanted to come out and do like it had nothing to do with me being gay or going to clubs. I couldn't back then, but I wanted to do like a dance gimmick.
Right.
That would be funny.
Right.
Like fucking. And I think I probably just thought village people. That's probably what I thought. So it would come out tough, looking tough with the fucking minute work gimmick. The fucking tool belt and the whole 9 yards, but then dance.
Right.
I thought it'd get more heat, it'd be more, at least something.
Right.
But Mark didn't want to do it, and they were kind of half-assed. Sullivan was half-assed about it, and Arn was half-assed about it. So we ended up just doing what we did. But it was better than, because people think I started as minute work. I did. I was doing jobs before minute work for WCW for a good few months at least, maybe 6 or 7 months. My first big show was the Bash at the beach, the one that was actually on the beach. And the main event that was before pay-per-view. They did the Sunday Night Slide main event.
Right.
And I wrestled Johnny B. Bad. That was my first big match. But I was Kanyon. I wasn't Men at Work. And I was Kanyon for a while. I even beat Disco as Kanyon before Men at Work. Because they hated Disco because he was a friend of Paige.
Right.
I don't think they knew I was a friend of Paige. It would have been me that beat fucking Disco. But
going back to your story, I didn't want to cut you off. Also, we're talking about Jody.
Yeah, so I show up the next day, of course, 7:30. They don't show up till 8:30 or 9, whatever, but I don't give a fuck. So they bring me in, Mike Winter's there. And Mike had done, I know Mike used to do Pacific Northwest. I remember the name from up there, so I kind of knew who he was. And Jody just says, all right, go in there and do a 7-minute match and just listen to him. So I'm like, all right, I'll listen. So Mike called a real basic match. I, try to get whatever I knew I could do that looked good, but I definitely didn't do the moonsault. I just listened, and literally after 7 minutes, Jody literally, Mike pins me. Jody looks, goes, turns around and walks to his office. Mike rolls out of the ring, goes into the other ring, starts training the other guys, and nobody says a word to me. Now it's 45 minutes, dude. Now I'm walking around the power plant looking at all the posters and all the cool shit. Like, holy fuck, this is, if you're an Elvis fan, this is like walking around Graceland by yourself. It's awesome. But I'm thinking, what the fuck just happened, man? Nobody said a word for 45 minutes. So finally, Mike Winter comes on and goes, Jody wants to see you. So I go in Jody's office, and Jody's a huge guy, big fucking guy, burly guy, and literally never looks up, dude. So I walked in, he literally goes, sit down, kid. So I sit down, and he's playing with something. He used to play electronic something.
Right.
Like in one of those old cribbage games or whatever. So he's like, kind of looks up, but not enough for I could really see him. And he grabs a piece of paper and a pen and just starts writing. I'm like, what the fuck is going on here? He writes, literally like he's in the mafia, flips it over and slides it across the table. I'm like, so I looked at it, and it just had 6 dates, like June 15th, 27th, July. He had 6 dates in June and July. He goes, can you make those dates, kid? I'm like, yep. He's like, show up. Didn't even say where they were. It's just dates. And then I was like, my main thing was I wanted to keep being in a school because I like coming up with new stuff. I like watch tapes and try new stuff. I just need someone to work with, really. And so that was my big thing. I didn't want to be charged for school because I couldn't afford it at this point. So I said, I was like, Jody, can I ask you one more thing? He goes, go ahead. But I was so scared of this guy. He's like, is there any way I could, show up here to school and practice with the guys? I'm thinking he's just like, yeah, if you pay me $3,000. That's the first time he looks up and goes, that's the best thing you could have asked me, kid. Yeah, show up. And that was it. Never charged me. Cool. And right away, man, I just got to work, right off the bat, man. One of my first things, I went down there within a couple of weeks. I worked with Triple H was there. Paul Levesque was still there. Worked with him, Terry Taylor. Who was the guy in Techno Team 2000? The dark-haired guy.
Techno Team 2000.
It wasn't Eric Watson. It was the other dude. He was there.
I know who you're talking about.
And we ended up doing we didn't really do a tag match. I think everyone just kind of tagged in, and then two guys would work, and then you could tag anybody.
Right.
And I remember even back then, Paul, he was man, we finally got a new guy that bumps and sells. He's willing to sell. Terry took a liking to me right away. Really, right off the bat, Terry Taylor, because he was down to school a lot for tryouts and stuff, and he would pull me aside. And Terry really, helped me out a lot. Paul was gone quick. Triple H left quick, and he was gone almost immediately. Alex Wright was there. Worked with him a little bit in the beginning. And DDP, of course, was there all the time. Immediately saw my work ethic, and that's how me and Paige became friends. He just saw me working there every fucking day, working my ass off. And I think he saw me as someone that would take all his moves and practice stuff with him, and kind of what I was always looking for too. So it worked out for me. And so he took a liking to me based on that right away. He was the first guy to really, I remember one day after school, he goes, "What are you doing?" Nothing. I was I'm going up to the Giants' apartment. A bunch of the wrestlers live up there in the same apartment. We just get somebody to pull. We want to go. And that's when I started kind of mixing with getting to know guys like Disco and, through him, Raven, when Raven came in. And that's kind of how I got in there and started getting featured.
I was going to ask you, did any of the vets take a liking to you?
Other than DDP, Disco, but I wouldn't say he was a vet, man. Actually, I was there before he was. He was doing a lot of indies. I'd worked in indie with him. So I kind of knew who he was. And then Paige went to bat for him with the Disco gimmick.
Right.
And I actually worked his dog match. Because we knew each other and Paige, Laurie, and Stad. So me and Disco had a connection right off the bat, too. And then I think Raven was still in ECW, but then Raven, I think, came down to Atlanta to hang, and we went to the movies together, and that's how I got to know Raven. And we hit it off pretty well right off the bat, too.
Let's talk more about WCW. We were talking about how you started getting in with some of the boys like Raven and DDP and guys like that. Eric Bischoff, as far as Eric, do you have any early memories of Eric from this time period?
Yeah, one of the first things that they put me on was this was a gang fuck. They did a cross promotion with NASCAR in Charlotte. They set up a ring in the middle of Charlotte, and there was a race in Charlotte at the same time. So Saturday night was going to be live, but they knew there might be a weather problem because it was supposed to be rain. So the previous Saturday night, they taped some matches, but they wanted to do some live matches right there in the street. Of course, it started raining. That's going to be my first WCW match on TV. So I got a call on my friend saying I might be on TBS tonight, but we don't know because of the rain. So
right.
Just a gang fuck. So I'm supposed to work Regal and Bobby Eaton. They were Blue Bloods at the time. And, we just had to go with the flow. And I think that's why Regal right away took a liking to me because I didn't freak out, at least not in front of him. I was freaking out.
Right.
My first WCW match. It's going to be live, but it's raining out. So we ended up having to go out there and pretty much do nothing because it was so fucking slippery. Anyone can get hurt. And I think what they did, they would just come live and like show Shivani and whoever he's with in the rain and talk outside the ring and say, we have matches, from Atlanta that we're going to send you to. Acting like that was live.
Right.
But to entertain the live crowd, we still had to go out and do the matches. So it happened to be Bischoff's birthday. So DDP tells me, hey, he goes, what are you doing after the show? I'm like, nothing. He's like, it's Bischoff's birthday. He goes, we're all going out to a bar. You want to go? What do you fucking think? Of course. So I remember meeting him. That was the first time I met him. And Paige introduced me as this guy from the power plant. And Paige straight up told him, he goes, I think he's going to be something. I'm like, you definitely want to keep an eye on this kid. And it wasn't too much after that they sent me out to LA and to do that match with Johnny B. Bad before the Bash at the Beach.
Right.
And that match was significant because, number one, back then, one thing I liked, when Eric and Vince used to do commentary, and they're the bosses, you kind of got a feel of if they liked it or not just from the commentary. It's hard for them to hide their true feelings.
Right.
So Bischoff really plugged me well in that match when he was doing commentary. As the heel, and Johnny was very over babyface, but you could tell he was hyping me up well. And and it's weird because up till then I never did a pay-per-view, obviously. So for our regular TV tapes, I think we had to be there 2 hours in advance, maybe an hour only. So I thought the same thing for a pay-per-view. So I fly out to California. I got out there for a couple of days early. I was fucking around. I showed up an hour or two before the pay-per-view, and fucking they were freaking out. So I was supposed to be there like 6 hours before the pay-per-view.
Right.
So I'm real late for my first big shot. So always a positive and negative. So Johnny, wanted to do something. And back then, not too many people were doing that, especially on TV. We're doing the Hurricane Rana off the top rope. He'd sit me up there and do it. He said, do you think you could take it? Because back then it was kind of unique. I said, yeah, I can take that. So he did that, and it got a great reaction live in the crowd. And I remember being happy after the match, but of course having that mixed feeling of, oh, fuck, but this is my big shot. And I was late, and Eric knows I was late. And I hadn't heard his commentary yet. But when I got the way they had it set up, too, because it was really outdoors, on the beach.
Right.
The way they did it, they had a bunch of trucks, and they parked them in a huge square. So it was a big area for the boys, and that was kind of sectioned off from everybody else. So I remember when I got back, Johnny came over and hugged me and thanked me, and I could tell it was a good match. I just had a good feeling about it. But then, dude, Bobby Heenan's fucking dressing room, he had his own room, and he fucking owned trailer. Literally, I see him come out, and I see him doing this. He's looking around. And I have a feeling, man, and sure enough, man, as soon as he sees me, he goes, and runs right over to me, he goes, you're going to be something in this business. You're going to be something. Turns around, went back into his trailer. And dude, I'm like, holy fuck, man, this is Bobby Heenan. I grew up in New York. Right. So I was in the Garden all those times, with the Weasel suit. And, all the WrestleManias and everything. To hear that from him, it was overwhelming, Literally crying. Literally, when he walked away, I fucking started weeping, man. It was really powerful for me. So it's upsetting because years later, Bobby, I think, buried me in his book. Buried me somewhere. Maybe on one of your fucking tapes.
Who knows?
But it's upsetting because, growing up, I loved the Horseman. I loved Piper. And I loved Heenan. He was one of the guys.
He's awesome.
Because I was a heel fan. I liked heels. So Bobby, of course, I loved him all those years in WWE. And to have that memory. And then after that, working with him for so long, and I thought we got along. And then, years later, after we, he never said nothing to me. And then to hear him bury me. And it came about this way, and I actually cleared it up with him at WrestleMania 20. I sat down and talked to him. Said it bothered me so much, and I didn't confront him. I just explained my side of it and told him that really upset me and that how much I respect him and love him and stuff. When I was doing the Who Bet and Kanyon thing,
right?
I first started doing that, and that was by luck. I was doing a Saturday night taping, and I hit a move, and you could tell when the camera's wrong because the light came on. So I hit a move and I end up being right by the rope. And the guy that was standing on the floor with the camera, light pops on and I'm right there. And I got to do or say something.
Right.
I'm like an idiot if I don't do something. So I just went, oh, better than Kanyon. And then I literally was going to get up and I was like, nobody. And I didn't think much of it. So I finished my match, whatever. So when I got to the back, DDP walked in and he goes, where'd you come up with that who better than Kanyon thing? I'm like, it just happened. He's like, you should keep doing that. And I thought it was just Paige with another one of his crazy fucking ideas. I'm like, I will, Paige. And I was never going to do it again. But then Perry Saturn came over. Because you should keep doing that who better than Kanyon thing. Because I think that'll stick. And I heard it from 2 people. So I'm like, at this point, people knew I was friends with Paige. So trying to get anything was hard. And even with Bischoff. See, Bischoff liked me and he gave me good opportunities. Work on movies and training celebrities and shit. But he wouldn't pay me much because he knew, I think anyway, I can't speak for him. But I never got car and hotel. By the end of WCW, everyone had it except for me and Disco. Literally, virtually everybody had car and hotels. Even guys coming out of the power plant had it, except for me and Disco. And that was one of the things Bischoff kind of kept away from me because I think he was afraid people would see, all right, friend of Paige. Let's see how Bischoff treats one of Paige's friends.
Right.
So I think I got less money and, less of a push at times and less good treatment because of the friendship with Paige. Definitely from Kevin Sullivan. I think Sullivan hated Paige. I don't know if he hated Paige, but I think Kevin didn't like angles pushed on him. And I think Paige was pushed on him. I think, Bischoff would just say, you can't beat Paige, period. Do whatever you want, but you can't beat Paige. Well, now, as a bookie, you kind of handcuffed. It ain't really fair to Kevin. Same thing with the Blood Runs Cold, Mortis, Glacier thing. That was thrown at Kevin. And they said, here's the angle, now do something. And Kevin, it wasn't his idea, so he didn't want to push it. But so I think he did have a bad relationship with Paige, I think. I can't speak for Kevin. But I felt like because of that, Kevin didn't really didn't like me too much.
Right.
And it's funny because I think on a personal level we got along all right. I loved hanging around him in the bar because he's so fucking funny and charismatic. But there was that point of me that said, I think this guy hates me, so why do you want to be around him? But whatever, it's wrestling, I guess. Huh. So, after that, I had to go to whoever was booking TV, and a lot of times it was Kevin. I was like, do you mind if I do the Who Bet and Kanyon thing before the match? All I'm going to say is Who Bet and Kanyon. No, it's nobody. Or everybody, whatever the fuck it was. So he, I had to fight for it week in and week out. So after months or so of doing it, and literally had to fight for it every time. And, I started getting somewhat over. I mean, it was never that over, but enough that I stood out, and to this day, when people see me on the street, if they recognize me, which is relatively rare, that's what they scream. They don't scream Kanyon, they scream Who Better.
All right.
So, I mean, I think it definitely was something. But Heenan came over to me one day and said, instead of just starting out with Who Bet and Kanyon, why don't you start complimenting everybody? Say, you are very beautiful in the front row. And you're so muscular and you look good. And then do it. He said, kind of do this whole, try to babyface them and they'll see through the fact that you're trying to get them to say it.
Right.
Which is actually a really good idea. I know he could pull it off. I wasn't confident that I could pull it off. I didn't know if that kind of personality I could portray. But one thing I did know was I was begging for literally 20 seconds just to say Who Bet and Kanyon. No, it's nobody.
Right.
I had to beg for that. There's no way Sullivan's going to let me do this. So instead of, explaining all that to Bobby, I just said, you know what, Bobby, that's a real good idea. I'll try it on the house shows. And if I can do it, if it works out, then I'll see if I can do it on TV. I was never really going to try it because there's no way Sullivan's going to let me. Huh. I guess Bobby took that as me being a big star blowing him off. Which I can maybe see his perspective on that, but he didn't see my side of it either. So I think that's why he buried. That's what the story he told when he buried me. That I was too big of a star to listen to Bobby Heenan. So I tried to clear it up with him at WrestleMania 20 in the Garden. 2 months after I got fired from WWE, and I explained it to him, and he said he understood, but who knows?
Right.
But it was one of the things that bothered me, in my career, especially. Especially now more than ever. I'm a straight shooter as far as when I do interviews. I'll fucking bury anybody that I don't like. I don't give a fuck. Because I'm pretty positive I'll never work for Vince again. I'm pretty sure I'll never work for Jarrett. So, I'm not worried about burning bridges at this point.
Right.
But at that stage of the game, if Bobby had a problem with me, he was in a level and I was at a level, he should have came to me. I think anyone really should. But him coming to me and telling me he had a problem with me because the way I handled that situation wasn't going to hurt him in any. Right. For him to sit on it all those years and then bury me without hearing my side of the story, I just thought that was wrong.
Now, you left WCW for a while. How did that end up happening?
Oh, we might have to be more clear. I think it happened a couple of times. one main one that I know of, that I remember, dude, it's amazing to me how foggy my memory is on some of the timelines of some of the things that happened. One was when Paige took his, was going to go find a smile or whatever.
Right.
I remember the promo. I remember he had beer. He goes, I like my Coronas with wine or whatever. And that's when he quit wrestling for a while. And that's when I started doing the Positively Canyon. Whereas mimicking Paige and promoting his book with Positively Canyon instead of Positively Paige.
Right.
As well as hitting the Diamond Cutter or Canyon Cutter out of nowhere. Well, we were doing, and Paige liked that because Paige was off TV, but now there was this character kind of, imitating him. And I think the whole concept, it literally came up, and I don't know if Russo gets credit for this angle or not. I mean, it is one of the angles that, when I do talk to fans, it's the one they liked and one they remembered. They really did like this. Russo was actually away at this point, and it was actually Disco Inferno and Ed Ferrara writing TV. And they're the ones that had me do those random canyon cutters everywhere. And the first one was just I think it was just going to be that week, but it got a good reaction live. They got good feedback from it. So they started making, that's when this angle started building on itself. And they were writing good stuff for it. The canyon cutters on people outside, and,
right.
During commercials and you name it. And they was talking to me like doing it literally like at Atlanta Hawk games to the Hawk, the mascot. I mean, they were going to really try to go far with it. Russo came back in the middle of me doing it. And the funny thing is, we played the beginning of Paige's music as my entrance music. So every now and again, like after one of my matches, they'd hit my music. And people would stand and look into the aisle thinking Paige is coming out because it was his music.
Right.
But it was really just my music. I stole his music too. So we could tell people really wanted Paige to come and get me. But Paige and Russo were really butting heads. And there was a chance Paige was never going to come back. In the beginning, there was always that talk to Paige. Paige thought he'd come back. So he didn't mind me doing his character and imitating him and doing this, specifically this. Diamond cutter sign, but then hitting the diamond cutter. He liked it because it was, and we even had plans that had his book and, the whole 9 yards. I mean, it was a way to promote him without him even having to be there. He loved it. But then there was talk that he might not come back, and Russo wanted me to keep doing it. And I told him, I said, Vinny, I'm like, this angle's fine. I'm like, but now Paige is a friend of mine, number one. Number two, he's done a lot for me. And whether I'm getting treated better or poorly because of my relationship with Paige doesn't matter. He's gone out of his way to help me. He specifically has asked me to stop doing the diamond cutter side and stop hitting the diamond cutter because he doesn't know if he's going to come back because you two won't fucking sit down and talk because you two fucking can't get your shit together. Now I'm put in a weird position between you, between my boss or Booker, whatever the fuck he is,
right,
and one of my best friends in the business. I'm like, you guys have both put me in a bad spot, but bottom line is I'll fucking quit wrestling if I got to fuck over a friend. Like, he's telling me to stop doing this and stop doing diamond cutter. I don't care what you tell me to do. I ain't fucking doing it. Like, you need to fucking man up and sit down with the guy and figure out if he's coming back or not. And if he's not coming back, then we got to stop doing it. Plain and simple. You can't keep teasing these fucking people. You see that reaction. They want him to come out and get me. I was like, you can't keep feeding this fucking angle if we know he's never coming back. We got to drop it. So he kind of agreed, but at that point I got sent home and
right.
punished, I guess, for speaking my mind. It actually kind of, I think, again, timelines are weird. I think that's when my dad had his heart trouble anyway. And I lost both grandparents within 2 months on my dad's side. And he had heart trouble. So it happened at a time where it worked out that I was able to go home and, But anytime I got sent home or, just, it's not even a matter of sending home. You had to find out every week if you were booked. And they even at the end, they had a deal where you called up a phone number and they listed all the names that had to be at TV. So they never said you're going to be home for 3 months or 2 months or a week. They didn't tell you anything. Every week we had to check. So it wasn't like you can even go on a vacation or plan anything.
Right.
I just had to every week call. Right off the bat, I did tell him after like 2 weeks, and I kind of realized I was getting punished. Then I did call Vinny and, left a message and said, hey, my dad's having heart trouble. He's in the hospital, and, I'm willing and ready to come back whenever you guys want me, but just if you can, let me know so, I can deal with my dad's health issues. So that was one of them. There was also the issue when Benoit and those guys left, Malenko, Benoit. There was a lot of controversy at that time, and a lot of us weren't happy. That's when they brought in that Bill Bush guy.
Right.
And on that pay-per-view, when, Chris won the belt, Benoit won the belt, and then he left the next day or whatever, I happened to not be on that pay-per-view. I think that was another time where I was kind of getting, it just wasn't being used or whatever the fuck, or I might have been being punished for something, who the hell knows. I really don't remember. I'm not trying to be elusive.
Right.
I don't remember what the fuck was going on. But if I was at that pay-per-view, there was a lot of talk. I remember the meeting that Bischoff had when he kind of called out Raven and Raven left. After that fucking meeting, there was a line at the phone literally the line at the phone of people calling to see if there was a spot for us up in New York or WCW. I mean, it was, when Bischoff made that thing, and Bischoff did say, whoever wants to leave can. He wasn't specific, but in that meeting, he made it sound like if you want out, you can leave and go wrestle somewhere else. Huh. Then when some of us kind of took him up on it, I don't think I was willing to because I had a spot. But I waited. Kidman and I think Conan went to him first. And that's when Eric backed off and said, well, you don't get a fucking full release. You can't work anywhere else. You can leave, but you're not. Huh. And I said, well, what kind of offer is that? Yeah. I never went to Eric. And I was in a weird spot anyway because I would have had to go to Page first anyway and tell him I want to leave. So I was already I guess at that point I must have been somewhat unhappy. When Chris and Dean and those guys left, I wasn't on that pay-per-view. If I was, I probably would have went with them because there was already talk, It wasn't like I was in their group, but there was talk of if people leave, I want to be in that group, and so I think if I was on that pay-per-view, I might have been in that group. I'm not saying I would have been pushed with them, but, I think I would have been one of the guys that walked because Bush allowed people to leave. I missed a few of the Bill Bush meetings where he said, whoever wants to go can go. I wasn't at that meeting. I was brought back after that Benoit thing. I was brought back to the Nassau Coliseum because I was local, I guess. And I asked to see Bill Bush. I was going to ask my release. Now, between you and me, and whoever watches this, I did call Jim Ross before that, obviously. I'm not stupid. And I asked if I had a spot. He said, legally, I can't say yes or no, but yes. Huh. And he out and told me how much. He was going to pay me $400,000. Told me the money and everything. He said, I can't say real money. He said, but he goes, what are you making now? And I was making, I think, $270. He goes, we'll pay you $4. He goes, but you didn't hear that here. Right. He out and told me. And he even, a quote he said, he goes, you're not at the level of a Scott Vick, who is a sick boy in WCW. Because we're not going to bring you in and then send you to our developmental territory. He said, you're ready for TV now. He said, so if you can get your release. And I was like, Jim, the show's in Nassau. I'm like, I'll ask Bush for the release. It wasn't even if he gives it to me. I said, when he gives it to me, I'll drive up the next day to you guys on Tuesday.
Right.
And meet with you guys and we'll sign something. He said, all right, do it. So I show up taping and I said, I saw Mr. Bush. I said, I think I called him Bill. I know, maybe not at first, but later I did. I said, I need to meet with you. He goes, all right, just give me a minute. And I swear to God, I saw him run over to one of the fucking production people. And I act like I'm not watching, but I'm watching. And he points to me and he said, who is that? They didn't know who the fuck I was. So he comes back to me and he goes, I'll see you in about 5 or 10 minutes. So I sit down and dude, I was furious at this point. I told and this was the same weekend Hogan went on the internet and said, Kim, we couldn't draw fleas at the flea market.
I remember, right.
Same fucking weekend. But now I'm fucking pissed. And that Monday, we were head-to-head with the dog show. USA Raw wasn't on, it was the dogs.
Right.
So I sit down with Bill Bush, and now I start calling him Billy, because now I'm pissed. I didn't know who the fuck I was. I'm like, here are the problems with this fucking company. Number one, you're the boss. You don't know who the fuck I am.
Right.
That's problem number one. I'm like, number two, you got the fucking head honcho of the company, fucking Hulk Hogan, running around fucking telling, who's supposed to be the leader of the ship. And the ship's going down, and the leader of the ship is saying, it's this guy's fault. He sucks. That's not a leader. I said, that's one of your fucking problems right there. I said, and I said, Billy, and I kept calling him Billy. I'm like, mark my words, Billy. I said, the fucking dogs are going to beat us tonight. The dogs are going to fucking beat us because you guys don't know what the fuck you're doing. I said, you're riding coach with us to try to connect with us, and that's wrong. I was like, because we don't respect you. You shouldn't even be on the plane with us. You need a level of respect. You have no respect here. And you haven't earned it, and you don't deserve it. It's like, you should just give up the fucking... I was like, give up. I was like, it's like, you fucking suck. I was like, I want out. You told everyone in a meeting that I was not out. If anybody wants their release, they'll have it. I said, I want my release. He said, I can't give it to you. I'm like, what? I said, you're going back on your word. He goes, I'll get back to you. He goes, guaranteed. He goes, I'll call you within a week. I said, you guarantee me within a week? He said, yep. I said, I guarantee you don't. He said, well, you'll see. Never called me, by the way. Huh. And the dogs beat us.
Right.
Check the numbers. The dogs did beat us. After that, I was furious about the Hogan thing. I really was. Because, if Hulk doesn't like somebody or doesn't think someone can draw, that's cool. But you're the leader of the company, number one. You're at least one of our top guys, if not the top guy. It's bad morale. The morale was already the shits in WCW. Don't be doing that. So, but I didn't want to be two-faced. I don't want to fucking talk behind his back. So after the meeting, I felt fucking obligated. You know, and the reason I thought he should have more respect for Kidman, because Kidman helped with training with Jay Leno. And with Rodman too, I think. And Kidman's always been cool with Hulk. You know, and I know Kidman respects Hulk.
Right.
You know, Kidman's a friend of mine. So I felt, fuck this. I'm like, I'm already on my way out, so fuck it. So I went to Jimmy Hart. I said, I want to meet with Hulk. I said, I want to sit down with the Hulk. So Jimmy goes into Hulk's fucking dressing room, comes out and goes, Hulk will see you. So I'm like, cool. So I go in there. I think Knobs was in there. I'm not sure who was in there, but Hulk told whoever was in there to get the fuck out. So I sit down. I was like, Hulk, I don't want to be a dick or nothing.
Right.
I got to be honest with you. I'm like, I just met with Bill Bush. I told him I want my release. I'm like, hopefully I'll get it. But in the meeting, I told him I thought what you did with Kidman this weekend was bullshit. I'm like, you know, you're the leader of this company in some ways, and for you to talk bad about all the guys, it's just going to hurt morale. I'm like, I thought what you did was wrong, and I don't want to be two-faced and not say it to your face. He goes, between you and me, because it's a work. I'm setting up an angle. I like Kidman. I want to work with him. He's like, you know, down the line, he goes, you'll know if I'm telling the truth if I work an angle with him down the line. He goes, but I'm telling you right now, it's a work.
So Kidman wasn't in
No.
Wow.
So then Hulk goes, I was like, oh, dude, I'm sorry. No, I had to apologize. I was like, sorry, dude. I'm like, well, it's a good work because you got me going. I said, and then he goes, about your release. He goes, did you talk to the big man yet before you did this? I'm like, yeah, I called. I was like, does he have a spot? I'm like, yeah. Hulk out and out told me, keep a spot for me at the big table. He said, tell a big man to save a spot at the big table for me. I said, I'll do it. So as soon as I get in, he goes, don't tell nobody about it. It's work.
Right.
I won't tell anybody. Get out of there. Right to Kidman.
Right.
Kidman told me it's a work. I'm like, do you believe it? He goes, I'll believe it if it happens.
Right.
You know, Kidman's pretty level-headed. He said, if it happens, I'll believe it.
Were you signed first, or did they approach you with the Mortis gimmick about it?
I was doing the Men at Work thing. They were talking about the Mortis gimmick.
Did you like the gimmick? The Mortis gimmick?
When it was first pitched to me, it was going to be huge, man. Bischoff met with Andre Freitas, who owns AFX Studios, who created every character, all 4 characters. It was his concept. But the original concept was Bischoff's, and the way Bischoff, because we had a meeting with Bischoff, Andre, DDP, Disco, and every guy, you know, me, Ray Lloyd, who played Glacier, Ernest Cat Miller, and Brian Clark, Rath. We all sat down with Bischoff. And he said, I looked around, and I looked at marketing and everything. He said, the things that are over, the Power Rangers, Mortal Kombat, before that, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. He said, I noticed a trend of martial arts being popular and characters, over-the-top characters. So I want to do that in wrestling. But I want it to look different, be different. He's like, it's going to be this whole huge thing. And I'm not told this, he goes, this is going to be the biggest thing in wrestling. He goes, that's my vision for this. Marketing. He goes, I see commercials, I see cartoons, I see action figures, you name it, we're going to do it. So he was against me being in it from the get-go.
Right.
Paige got me in there. Bischoff said, nah, I'm not Kanyon. You know, and then Paige talked him into it. And then we'd meet, and then after meeting with me, he'd go back to Paige and say, I don't think Kanyon's right for this. Paige would have to come to me and say, he thinks he doesn't want you in it now. So I'm on this yo-yo, right, and then I'm out of it. And the whole time I'm taking karate lessons with all of us. You know, Raph was there, Ernest wasn't, obviously, but me, Glacier, and Raph were taking karate lessons. We're down to school every day trying to come up with a unique looking style. We wanted moves and a style that was very different.
Right.
I think we hired the wrong karate instructor. He didn't get it. He was like made us learn how to count 1 to 10 in fucking Japanese or whatever. And I'm like, dude, that ain't what this is.
Right.
Yeah, I respect what you do. I respect the martial arts. But dude, we got to focus on what we're going to do on TV, not counting 1 to 10, motherfucker. Right. But we should have ditched them and got someone that knew.
Is it true that I guess they wanted your character to be more like a skeleton?
They wanted me to be a snake.
Right.
They wanted me to be a snake at first, and Jake the Snake had been in WCW, not much before that. And I was a huge Ghost Rider mark growing up. I loved the Ghost Rider comic book. And so it was my idea. I was like, you know what? Snake's been done. People love skeletons. This is before, you know, this is before Stone Cold did the whole skeleton gimmick, you know, on his T-shirts and everything. You know, I don't know if anybody had really done. And well, Parker wasn't in yet.
Right. So
I was like, I'm telling you, man, if we do skeletons, merchandise-wise, it will sell, man. Let's do this. So they were with it. I literally wanted to walk out with my head on fire. You know, a skeleton mask.
That'd be cool.
And the mask I asked Andre to design was, I wanted it to look like the skull was coming through my skin. So, like, where the skeleton part would end, my skin would start. So it would really just look like the skin was torn from my face.
Right.
Probably would have cost more than the $30,000 he charged per character, though. So immediately we would, I was going to be a skeleton, and then we came up with the name Mortis, based on it. And he had a list of like 12 names for each one of us, and we each kind of.
That's what Glacier was telling us.
Yeah. So we each kind of picked out our own fucking names. Wrath had a cool name. I like Wraths. That was pretty much right off the bat. Mortis, I kind of like, but there was nothing better, I didn't think, as far as what he came up with. But then, unfortunately, while we were doing all of this, and one of the frustrating parts for me was when I first signed with Bischoff, it was literally I got there in May. That October, he signed me to a contract. But my first contract was for $450 a week, $22,500 a year. That was my first contract with Bischoff in October. But he told me, when the new year, he goes, we're at the end of a budget. And I met up, up in fucking CNN Tower with him. I mean, it was fucking impressive, scary. And literally, I thought it would be a meeting and stuff. He didn't even know I was going to be there. He goes, oh, yeah, sit down. He's like, he just looked up at the calendar. He goes, we're at the end of the calendar year. He's like, what are you making now? I forget. I think we were getting $200 a match, $150 a match maybe.
Right.
Yeah, because I was just getting paid per match. I think it was $150 a match. He's like, what? He goes, all I can do for you now is $450 a week. He goes, but at least it's guaranteed whether you wrestle or not. So I was cool with that, And he said, and then as soon as the new year comes around, just remind me or tell Paige to remind me, and we'll bump you up a little bit. So, really, dude, again, remember, I had made $70,000 a year already.
Right.
3 years or 2 years, whatever I did the therapy. I get in the elevator, leaving the meeting, and that's how long the meeting was, literally, less than fucking 5 minutes. I know I just signed my friend, it's another step, it's like I signed a deal to be a wrestler. Now I really feel like a pro wrestler. Up to that point, you just feel like a job guy. You feel like an independent wrestler. You sign a contract with one of the two companies. It's like, I start balling again, man, right? The fucking people are into the elevator, and I'm fucking balling. And it's only for $22,500. It wasn't about the money.
Right.
I already made $70,000 a year. $22,500, dude, it was just, no matter what, I'm getting a $450 paycheck. And then, sure enough, January 1st came, and he bumped me up to $6,000. But that's all I was making when we started doing the Mortis thing. And then I find out what Wrath was making. Find out what Ray's making. Find out what Ernest is making. And I'm still only making $30,000 a year. The whole time we're training. But I know why, because fucking Eric keeps flip-flopping on whether I'm going to do it or not. And finally, fucking, I had enough. I told Paige, I can't keep doing this. Number one, I can't keep doing this for fucking $30,000 a year.
Right.
When I know what these other motherfuckers are making. And I know I'm better than fucking,
Oh, yeah.
Whatever. I'm not going to fucking say who's better than who, but
right.
I felt like I was working just as hard as them, and I was pretty good compared to some of them. So, especially Ernest. I mean, Ernest was green. Him I will talk about. Ernest, this was his first gig, man. I had to basically, me, Wrath, and Ray had to train him from scratch. And he was horrible at first. And he was fucking beating the fuck out of us with his kicks and shit, So, for him to make what he was making, and I won't say that, but he was making a good bit more than I was. I thought it was unfair, number one. And for Eric to flip-flop the way he was on me, bringing my hopes up. Literally, and remember, at this point, we think it's going to be the biggest gimmick in wrestling, because that's what he told us it was going to be. To think I'm in it and they're not in it, and Eric keeps, I was like, he needs to make a decision one way or the other on me. And if I'm in, he needs to pay me. I was like, I just think it's fair.
Right.
It's the right thing. He's like, you're right. He said, he wants to see you in the ring. So Eric came down to the power plant and watched me work with Ray and with Ernest back to back. And he literally walked over to Paige and goes, you're absolutely right the whole time. I was wrong. Kane's the only guy for this gimmick. And immediately called me in. And I had this whole fucking spiel, just like a lot of what I just told you, how I was a physical therapist. I was making $70,000 a night, $70,000 a year, and I had notes. I'm sitting there. So when he called me in for the meeting after he watched me, I'm sitting there, and when I kept going to Paige and saying, Paige, you got to talk to Bischoff for me. And at one point, Bischoff, and Paige told me this, Bischoff said, well, what am I paying him right now anyway? Because he had no idea. So Paige told me, paying him $30,000 a year, paying him $600 a week. As well, you know what you should do? Go back to Kanyon, tell him that $30,000 a year for doing nothing isn't fucking bad. So Paige comes back and tells me that. So now that's on my mind. That this motherfucker thinks I'm doing fucking nothing. I'm getting up every day, going to the power plant, usually around 8, training, then going to karate school, then coming back to the power plant. Pretty much 9 to 5. And this is for months and months, dude. And learning karate and the whole 9 yards. And training Ernest from scratch, who's making a shitload more than me. Wrath, who's making a shitload more than me. Ray, who fucking never did it, hasn't worked for WCW before, making a shitload more than me. So I'm like, this is just wrong. So finally, he watches me, says, yeah, I'm good for the part. brings me in. I have my notes. So I'm telling him, and I went from making $70,000 a year to making, $40 a night. I'll tell you what, Eric, I was happier than I ever was in my life because I love this, and I just kept putting over how much I love it. I would do anything for the business. I'd do anything for him because he's giving me my spot. Do anything for Paige because he helped me out. And finally, he goes, you know what, Chris? He goes, put the notes down. I'm like, oh fuck, what now?
Huh.
So he goes, put them on the ground. So I put them on the ground. He goes, stop reading from the notes. Tell me what you really feel.
Right.
And dude, I had that moment. I'm thinking, what's on your mind? And I keep going back to the $30,000 thing. I'm like, Eric, Paige, tell me what you said. He told me that you said that $30,000 a year for doing nothing isn't fucking bad, and I should shut the fuck up and just do what I'm supposed to do. I was like, Eric, if you think I'm doing nothing, and I didn't curse the whole time, which is rare for me. I was like, when I gave my spiel, I was real professional. I was dressed. I wasn't in a suit, but I was dressed all right. And finally, I said, Eric, if you think I've been doing nothing for the last few months, you're fucking crazy. I've been working my ass off training your boy Ernest, who's fucking beating the fuck of us with his kicks. I'm working fucking 8, 10, 12 hours a day with this shit. Between working out and training at the power plant and doing karate. I'm like, man, for you to think I'm doing nothing, that's a fucking slap in my face. I couldn't believe I was saying this to Eric, man. I was definitely, I'm not intimidated by too many people in the business. Flair a little bit when I met him. Hulk, of course. Vince is probably the most intimidating motherfucker on the planet. And Eric to some extent. But, he gave me that opportunity to tell him what I really felt. And I felt I owed it to me and to him to, get that off my chest. And he goes, back up. He goes, Paige has a way to dramatize things. He said, I didn't really say it that way. And he said, I didn't really mean you were doing nothing. He said, but when I got to WCW, I was pretty much collecting cans to pay fucking food bills for my family. He said, I was in rough shape when I got here. He said, so to me, $30,000 ain't bad to be doing what you love. Because that's kind of what I meant. I didn't really mean you were doing nothing. He goes from the spiel of him fucking collecting cans to pay for his fucking kids' food, literally, to going, so what were you thinking? How much should I pay you? And I'm thinking, oh, fuck. He just told me fucking he had to collect cans. He said $30,000 isn't, I'm not getting paid to do nothing, but $30,000 is not bad to do what you love. Now he throws this at me, and I'm thinking, I went in there thinking I was going to ask for $60,000, 100, 150 over a 3-year period. And, I was like, oh, fuck, I can't ask for $60,000 now. And I can't ask for fucking 3 years from now 150 when he's telling me $30,000 to do what you love is fucking all right and collect the cans. Something else, fuck, I got to give him a number. I'm like, fuck it. Well, 60s, it's like, just, right now, what are you making? I'm literally in my mind trying to figure out math quick. And he's waiting. It's this fucking long, comfortable silence. I'm thinking, all right now I'm making 30. Fuck, don't ask for 3 different years. Just ask for 3 years of the same and go low. So I'm like, just how about 3 years of 70? Which is a good bit different than fucking 70, 120, 150.
Right.
Overall, 3 years of 70 would have been, 210. So I would have almost made that my 3rd year. So I'm like, But I was like, you know what? Even that seems a lot, but fucking throw it out there. And now this is literally after about a 20-minute meeting and me laying my guts on the floor for this guy. And I said, just 3 years of 70? And now I'm scared shitless. And he's looking at me and goes, nope. And I went, why? I was really upset. He goes, because I'm thinking 100. And immediately I'm thinking, does he need 100 more per week? And I'm thinking, that's 700. That's 35. I was like, do you mean 100,000 a year? He goes, yep. I'm like, I'll take it.
Nice.
And dude, I got in a fucking, now I'm making 6 figures doing what I love,
There you go.
And I get in a fucking elevator and again, fucking tears, dude. I mean, fucking second time I cried in that fucking building.
Huh.
Yeah, dude. I mean, and that's one thing about Eric, man. I know he did that with almost everyone. He'd ask you what you want, and then a lot of people he gave more.
Right.
And he was fair about that. And, again, I think that was still less than maybe all 3 of the other guys. I'm not positive, but I think it was at the time.
You also got to work with Vandenberg again. What was that like?
Yeah, that was a Disco Inferno idea.
Right.
He was a big fan of Great Muta, and he was a big fan of Gary Hart, great Gary Hart. And I was too. And I always liked Gary Hart, but when I watched the WWE, Vince did put out a good video, man, a world-class video. And Gary Hart's all over that. And he does a lot of commentary in that video. And the rise and fall, I think, of WCCW, World Class Championship Wrestling. And I just got to love Gary during that video. And then he died right after I watched that. And, Disco was a huge fan of Muta and Gary Hart and thought that the Mortis character should kind of be based somewhat on the Muta character.
Right.
And he figured, that Vandenberg would be a good fit to kind of do what Gary Hart did with Muda. So that's how that came about. And to give that call to Jim and tell him, hey, there's a good chance we can bring you in. It's like we need a tape and stuff, but I think we're going to get you in here. And again, everything was through Paige. It was usually an idea of mine or Disco's or someone else. But then we'd go through Paige, and Paige would get it to Eric and back to us. Same thing with Kidman. Kidman, the whole time I was in WCW, never once called and asked for a job. We did talk on the phone, but never asked for me to get him in there.
Right.
And then I heard the rumors of them bringing in Ray and Rey Mysterio. And I went to Terry, and I said, Terry, I'm like, it's great. I love Ray. Ray, he's fucking awesome. What are you going to have him work with? He goes, you're right. I'm like, I think I know somebody. So he goes, well, you know who to go to. So I went to Paige. I showed him the tape of the shooting star. And, just some stuff Kidman could do. And Paige said, tell me to come down here. So I called up Kidman. He came down, did a tryout. It happened to be on a Friday. Wrestled in front of Paige. Then he, and fucking Terry never saw the shooting star, I don't think. If he did, he didn't see anyone do it live. So and on Fridays, every other Friday, I think we got paid every 2 weeks there. Either every Friday, every 2 Fridays. People would come to the power plant to get their check instead of having to wait to get it mailed out. And if you didn't pick it up, then it got mailed out. So tons of people came to get their check that day, and every single guy that came, Kidman, do it again. So fucking Kidman literally probably did 20 or 30 shooting stars that day. His fucking knee was all busted up. But Paige called up Bischoff, said, yeah, I watch him, he's good. And on Paige's word, Bischoff said, hire him. But I got to, Kidman went home before that. And I think on Saturday I got to call Kidman and said, they're going to hire you, bro. So cool. Back down within a week. One other thing about the Blood Runs Cult thing that few people know, we actually pitched to get Van Damme in on it. We thought Van Damme would be a better character for Glacier. I mean, Ray was still going to be involved, but we thought coming out of the gate we needed somebody that was going to really shine. I don't know if Ray even knew this, but me and Disco went to Paige and said, we need Van Damme for this. Van Damme needs to be Glacier. Keep Ray in the gimmick, but we need something different. Rob can do it. And I'm pretty sure they called Rob, and Rob turned him down, man.
Right.
I don't know if you know that or if he's ever,
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, I don't know if he's ever let it out. And I don't know if he knew that the gimmick was that. I don't think they explained everything. I think they just wanted to bring him in, and he told them no. He had been there in 90.
Yeah, he was doing jobs and stuff.
Yeah, Robbie V. He helped Johnny Polo once, actually.
Yeah.
So I think he just didn't like the whole WCW scenario. So I don't know if he ever was told what the gimmick would be, but me and Disco felt pretty strongly that he should have been the main guy. And I had the history with Rob from South Carolina, so I went to bat for him because I thought we would have good matches off the bat. Not a slight against Ray, but I'd worked a lot with Rob in South Carolina, and he just is so unique. I thought the Blood Runs Cold gimmick would do better if the first guy out was Rob. And who knows, it might have. But the problem, and what happened while we were doing all this and getting ready, they started this other angle that got someone over called the NWO.
No, never heard of it.
Yeah. So I remember watching it. We were all getting ready. Me and Glacier, me and Ray went down to somewhere in Georgia to his friend's house and watched the pay-per-view when Hulk, started the NWO and turned heel. And literally, dude, I don't know if Ray remembers this, but literally as it happened, I looked at him and goes, there goes our push.
I think he talked about that in our interview.
Yeah, we both knew it too. We were like, fuck.
Did you like working with Ray too?
Loved it. Timing was phenomenal. Ray's just, and dude, anyone else with that fucking push, and a lot of people don't remember, and that push was ridiculous, man. They shoved Glacier down everyone's throat. The build-up was fucking way too long. We didn't even know that. I mean, we knew the thing was shot, the videos.
Right.
When it started airing, we're like, Ray didn't even know it was going to start airing.
Yeah.
We're like, we're not going to do this for another few months. This push is going to be way too long. We knew it right off the bat. And, it went on and on. But anyone else with that push, I think the boys would have fucking hated him. Because remember, they didn't know who he was either. He'd been around for a long time doing local indies in Georgia. And he had a good reputation in the Georgia indie scene. But, man, if it was anyone else and they came in with that push, everybody would have fucking hated him. But Ray is just such a nice guy that people fucking said, it ain't getting over, but at least Ray's a good guy, and at least someone who's getting that kind of push is a good guy. So and working with Ray was fun, man. He's a really good guy. He still he stays in touch with me to this day, and he's a good guy. And man, I really do think his bumping and selling is totally underrated, man. People remember the push and the whole Blood Runs Cult, and didn't get that over. Go back and watch those early matches, and Ray's bumping and selling is fucking phenomenal, man. Really good. And very underrated, man. It's just, bad situation, man. It just didn't work.
How about Brian Clark? What do you remember of Brian?
I know Brian shot on me recently.
He's very bitter.
Huh?
He's pretty bitter.
Yeah, he's a pretty bitter guy. I was happy that Brian was in it, and I'll say this, man. He was fucking furious that I wasn't getting paid when we were training. He thought it was fucking wrong. He hated that Ernest was getting paid a lot more than I was. And that motherfucker took care of me, man. We were together all the fucking time. We woke up, so we'd have at least 2 meals, at least 1 meal together every day, Monday through Friday. He'd also have me over at his house for pay-per-views and always took care of me, man. And, I just didn't have the money. We'd go out to eat. And I had enough that I could pay, but, I was making fucking, it wasn't like I was making nothing. I was making $30,000 a year, so I could pay. But he would never let me pay for my own food. He has a big heart, but he's pretty damn set on how he thinks things should go, especially in his own career. And he had his way, and he thought a lot of things that we wanted to do were wrong. And I think he's a good big man. Not the best big man. Maybe Bam Bam Bagwell of all time. He's right up there. Well, I'll just and Sid Vicious, Sid Justice, whatever the fuck his name wants to be. Very nice guy. I like Sid, and incredibly charismatic, especially back in the Twin Tower days, early WCW days, man, when he first broke in, with Dan Spivey. Really incredibly charismatic, but just not a very good worker, period. And that is a guy that Brian idolized, and that's a guy that Brian mimicked a lot. And, I mimicked Ric Flair and he mimicked Sid Vicious. I don't want to shoot out. He's, like I said, he's a good guy.
Right.
He did take shots at me. But I'll tell you, I can't really be mad at what he said. He said I'm a little crazy, and there's no doubt. I've been in the nut house 3 times, so it's hard to argue that I'm not crazy. Impatient 3 times. So, yeah, and me and Vandenberg fought a lot. I think his quote was like a married couple. I was crazy, man. I was very high strung. I was bipolar, and even back then, I just was never diagnosed back then. But man, when you're bipolar and you're in the wrestling world or anything that's going to give you highs and lows like wrestling does, it gets accentuated, man. And you just get pent up and you flip out, man. And you lose it. You get real manic, you get real depressed, and you get real at times violent, and you become very unlike yourself. And I took it out on people that were closest to me, and Vandenberg was one of them.
We'll talk about that coming up in the interview. As far as the gimmick goes, did you sense at any time that the gimmick was doomed to fail? Besides when you watched the NWO debut?
Yeah, when Ray was pretty unflexible in the beginning too. Me and Disco, I really respect Disco. Glenn Gilberti is a great mind. The one thing about Glenn, he'll throw a million bad ideas against that wall, but at least 2 or 3 will stick. But he needs someone to edit him, I think, if he's going to be in any kind of booking position. He has just tons of ideas, and he doesn't take it personal when you shoot down the bad ones.
Right.
So I really respect his opinion. Me and him both in the beginning saw that the push was too long. Everyone knew that. We all knew the build-up. I mean, Jesus Christ could have walked out there after that build-up, and I think he would have got booed, So the build-up was way too long, and what we told Ray in the beginning that he was sticking too much to the traditional karate. We thought, it's a martial arts gimmick, and Eric wanted to see martial arts. But you got to back off of the karate and the stances and shit. And we tried to make some adjustments, and I there were things that I think Ray should have changed in the beginning, and he didn't, even after we told him he should. But I'm telling you, I don't know if anything he could have done. I don't know if Rob Van Dam could have pulled that one off now. But that long of a build-up, and people forget how powerful and well-produced those videos were, and nothing was being produced like that back then. Nothing. Those build-ups, those Blood Runs Cold videos, and remember what the Blood Runs Cold is. And Blood Runs Cold, your world is about to change. You're telling the wrestling world it's about to change.
All right.
You better bring out somebody like Jesus. Rob fucking awesome, but man, I don't know if he could have pulled it off. That was a tough build-up, man. So I don't want to blame Ray. I think he could have tried some different things than he did. I think once the Glacier character didn't get over as well as it should have, I think they should have featured me and Wrath more. I don't think I should have lost. I think they should have. There was planned build-up for me too. Mortis was the second character. There was going to be me on a fucking boat with the fog coming up and the fucking talisman fucking or whatever, the deaf guy on the boat. And, Vandenberg was going to be involved. Jim Mitchell was going to be involved in it. There was going to be a similar build-up for me, but after the Glacier thing didn't work. Instead, I got an interview on Saturday night when Kevin Sullivan went over to fucking Vandenberg 2 minutes before. What's your name? And he used Darryl Van Horn on the Indies. And that's Darryl Van Horn is a character Jack Nicholson played in Witches of Eastwick. Can't use that. It's like movie name. What's your real name? It's like Jim Mitchell. He goes, we're going to use that. Jim Mitchell's like, I don't want to use my real name, man. So he had to come up with James Vandenberg on the spot. And this is the Saturday night taping before the pay-per-view. And he's like, all right, we're going to do an interview with you two. You're going to introduce the character that's going to wrestle Glacier. So my build-up was literally a Saturday night interview. And right before we do it, Kevin Sullivan goes over to Mitchell and goes, I don't want to see anything like Jack Nicholson, no devil worship, none of this, none of that, none of that. I'll go do it. So poor fucking Mitchell, man. And, he's doing the majority of the interview for me. And then I did 3 or 4 words, and that was it. And that was the build-up, and then I wrestled Glacier on Uncensored. My debut as Mortis. Get beat, clean, which that's a horrible way to debut. And even worse than that, which me and Disco really fought, was after I got beat, Wrath is making his entrance. So that was supposed to be another 2 months before Wrath came out. Now they want Wrath to do a run-in, so my whole fucking thing is pretty much you take Mortis, throw him out there, beat him, and I'll bring in the next character. So I don't think Mortis had much of a chance. And then they told me, they didn't do much with Wrath either. They could have. I mean, Wrath, I think, later proved he could get over. When he came back and did that pump handle slam thing, that got over huge.
Yeah.
And, in my opinion, Nash quashed that because Nash was strength.
I was going to ask you, did any of the NWO guys ever try to play politics and sabotage your storylines?
I'll say this: when once the thing with Ernest ran its course, Ernest and Ray, and me and Wrath broke off on our own. Next thing I think they put us with was Ming and Barbarian. Oh my God. It was a Saturday night match. We didn't even know the angle was starting. It was just going to be a match. And we go out there, and within minutes, literally within seconds, I know something's up. And Ming and Barbarian beat the fuck out of both of us, man. I haven't watched that tape in forever, but it was a shoot. I think Sullivan sent him out there and said, just beat the fuck out of him. And, what are you going to do? The boss tells you beat the fuck out of these 2 guys. Do it.
Right.
So, and I'm in a weird spot, man. Like, I think if it's a real fight, Ming and Barbarian are going to kill me. I really do believe Ming is one of the toughest guys in the business. I heard stories too, and I do believe it. From being out there with him and feeling his strength and his intensity, I think he was, at least in his prime, one of the toughest guys in the business. So I'm thinking, all right, they're beating the fuck out of us. There's no doubt about that. I'm like, now do I just let him fight? Do I just let him beat the fuck out of me? Or do you lose respect from Ming if you don't fight back? I immediately figure out what's going on. I know Kevin probably told him to do this. Kevin Sullivan, not Nash. So they're beating the fuck out of both of us. And I look at Vandenberg and Wrath, and they're both like, we're all like, what is going on? So I'm like, I gotta hit back. I don't want to punch him hard. I don't want to hurt him really, but I don't want him to think I'm a pussy and I'm letting him beat me up. So I try to fight back, and really, I hit him pretty good a couple of times, but it's like I don't want to piss him off. So he beat the fuck out of both of us. We get in the back, and we both, all 3 of us, what the fuck was that? I was like, someone probably just told him to beat the fuck out of us. The next thing you know, we're in a program with these fucking guys, but it was only that first match. After that, it was all work.
Right.
We worked together after that. And I was never mad at Ming or Barbarian. Because first of all, if you get mad, what is going to happen? What am I going to do? Number 2, if the boss tells you to do that, if the boss tells me to fucking beat somebody up, I'm probably going to do it. At least make it look like I am.
Right.
I might tell the guy, hey, just tell him I beat the fuck out of you. Or something. I got to do something. I mean, it is wrestling. It is what the business is. And, but we build up that storyline, and, that storyline was pretty good. I mean, it wasn't much of an angle, but the matches were pretty strong. And we had a pay-per-view match that was pretty over, man. A lot more over than I thought it would be. Crowd was really into it. Really good, strong finish. Really strong finish. Fucking Ming's tongue and grip, which I actually started doing. That's another funny thing. That's one of the things Mortis did, is that fucking tongue and grip. And out of nowhere, I see Ming starting to use it. I was like, Sullivan gave it to him. And the funny thing is, too, as we were getting ready to bring Mortis out, Parker showed up. So I was like, who brought in Parker? Sullivan. Doesn't he know a skeleton character is about to debut? No big deal. So again, I think those are shots from Sullivan. I mean, I could be wrong. Maybe I'm paranoid. I mean, that's wrestling.
Huh.
So anyway, so at the end, I think first he grabs it on Wrath, the tongue grip, and then I think Vandenberg came in and he grabs Randy. And while he's holding both, I came in and hit the super kick in a stiff one, man. Because I know Ming could take it. I think Ming liked working stiff. So I hit him pretty good with a super kick to the chin. And he just lets go of fucking Vandy. Fucking no sells it, grabs me, and the fucking crowd went nuts. And I forget how it ended. I think that distracted him, and Wrath got loose and hit his finish and pinned me. We were supposed to do the job. Sullivan had us putting those guys over, and then Bischoff stepped in and said, no, you're not beating those guys. I'm sure that pissed off.
Right.
Sure that pissed off Sullivan too. Right after that, we started getting some steam as a tag team. And right away, next thing you know, we're on Nitro against Nash and Hall. And those motherfuckers sold their asses off for us. It was a good, strong match. But they beat us pretty, on the Nitro. And that was pretty much, I think, the end of our push. So, man, I think it's a lot of paranoia to think they thought that deeply. Like, oh, shit, Kanyon and Mortis and Wrath are starting to get over. Let's beat them.
Right.
I do believe maybe when Wrath was getting over on his own, that Nash stepped in and put the kibosh. And that was a rumor that a lot of people heard. I wouldn't be that surprised. I think there might have been some heat. The way Wrath is, he's a bit of a heat magnet. And I think he might have pissed off this clique in WWE. So maybe there was something. I don't know. I can't speak for Kevin. I mean, I can just tell you my opinion from being there and what I thought, what I heard, and what I saw.
Ernest, did you get to see the movie The Wrestler at all?
I actually have it on DVD, believe it or not. A friend sent it to me.
Right.
I was supposed to watch it yesterday. I haven't.
Okay. I was going to ask you what are your thoughts on him in the movie, but you got to work with him a lot, and he actually accused you of being a racist at one point in an interview for spitting on him after the match. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh my God! Literally, I mean, I think if you're part of a suppressed group, if you're the victim of bigotry and prejudice. And as a gay person, I've seen it my whole life. Since I wasn't out till I was 36. I didn't experience it personally, but I saw my group get oppressed. And I don't know. One of my most shocking things was when I went to my first gay pride parade in Atlanta, and I saw a group of black people protesting us. And I thought, how could another group that's being oppressed protest another group? I don't understand it. I mean, because I was gay and I understand, what it's like to be part of a group that's prejudiced and people hate. And I could never be racist. I mean, I was definitely a homophobe in college, but there was a reason behind that. I talked badly about gays so people wouldn't think I was gay. But no, I dated one of the few girls I actually dated. Literally only one when I was 12, I think, 10 or 12. But then in college, this girl was so into me, and all my friends knew it. I had to date her, but she was. Dark-skinned.
Right.
She was Egyptian. Everyone thought she was black, but I don't think she was. But everyone just assumed she was black. And I dated her. I mean, I'm surprised he would say that, to be honest.
Okay. How did you wind up being the guy to train the celebrities in WCW? And you kind of told us off camera about Rodman and Leno, and share some of those stories, Carl Malone.
I think I got to be around Eric a little bit more than most because of Paige in different situations. I think Eric recognized that I went to college. I had a head on my shoulders. I could deal with things outside of wrestling, and I was creative as far as wrestling goes as well. So I think when the opportunity came to work for the Jesse Ventura movie, I think just based on him being around me and knowing my love of the business, my knowledge of the business, and that I had somewhat of a head on my shoulder as the creative head, I think I was the obvious choice for him to send me up to Toronto and work on the Jesse Ventura story. And I think, I can't speak for Eric, but I think he probably knew about Ready to Rumble when he did that, and I think Jesse Ventura was like a training ground for me.
Right.
So I could go and do the Ready to Rumble thing. I think from being down at the power plant, I trained a lot of guys, that came up and worked with a lot of guys. I had a history of training Kidman. I worked with Scott Vick a lot of the young new guys. And it got to the point where Terry liked me a lot. Like I said, Terry Taylor liked me a lot. So any new guy that came in, literally a quote from Terry Taylor once at a Disney taping. I think I was working, I don't know who the hell I was working. But he told the poor guy who was working me, if you don't have a good match with Chris Kanyon, hang up your boots right now.
Right.
So because of Terry, I got that role of any new guy that was coming in, I was the guy that got to work him. So when Al Snow came in, and I heard about Al, and I'd seen some of Al's stuff, I went to Terry and said, hey, I'm getting Al, right? He goes, no, you're not. I was pissed, man. It was actually Barry Houston got that shot.
Right.
To work with Al. And I remember, I like Barry a lot. I think Barry ended up being all right. I think Barry ended up being a millionaire. I think he won a lawsuit against the injury. He got hit by a car or something. But Barry was real talented, so I wasn't too upset. But I got that reputation of being the guy to make other people look good. So I think because of that, because of my work down at the power plant, because of working on the Jesse Ventura story and Ready to Rumble, and since I was at the power plant a lot, I think one of my first was when they brought in Kevin Green and Mongo to do the match with Flair and Arn. I guess that's where Mongo turned. I kind of forget the angle. They need someone to power plant to Flair and on. They want to get in there with these two fucking idiots. Huh. And I shouldn't say that about Kevin Green. Because Kevin was cool, but Mongo he's weird. He's crazy. Bad. But Flair and On come down and like, all right, we want to see the match. And we put together a match and they asked me to help. And then they had me and Sergeant Buddy Lee Parker, do the roles of Flair and On. And Flair and On watched the match. So I picked Flair, of course. And I did everything, dude. I did Bagwell off to call him in. Everything I've ever seen Flair do, did the Flair flip in the corner.
Right.
Wooing. Flair and On were laughing their ass off as I'm doing Flair for them against Mongo and Kevin. And I think that from that point on, I think I kind of got known as the guy who, since I worked with Mongo and Kevin so much. Then it led into Rodman, Malone, Jay Leno, and doing their movies.
How are those guys?
Kevin's awesome. Mongo worked hard, I guess. I don't know. Mongo just... It's amazing to me he was such a good football player because he's such a horrible wrestler, man. I thought you'd have to be a natural athlete to be that good at football. But he was awkward. And I don't know how he was able to play football so well when he was so fucking bad at wrestling. He was funny. I liked him. He was nuts, man. There was a girl. We were in a bar. I think it was in Charlotte again. And some girl came on me and goes, man, Mongo's making me go up to his room. Can you please come up with me? I'm like, all right. I never really dealt with Mongo much, but dude, we go up to his room, man, and I don't want to stooge him off, so I'm not going to say everything he was doing. But
right.
He was doing a lot of bad stuff. And these girls were petrified, man. And this motherfucker out of nowhere he did the whole Steve-O thing, where he fucking had the shot with the salt and the fucking lime and the fucking, and literally fucking snorted the salt, and it was salt.
Right.
But he did. He snorted the salt, took the fucking lime, squoze it in his own eye, and then took the shot. Didn't even drink it. Fucking threw it as hard as he could against the wall, man. And just kept doing it. And these girls were fucking freaking out. And they ran. They ran away. Mongo was crazy, man. But I'll tell you what, I go back and watch the tapes. I kind of liked him on the commentary.
Yeah, he was definitely fun.
He had a fucking energy. He loved it. You could tell he loved it. He was fun to travel with. Me and Raven worked him and Malenko once. We had a fucking poor Malenko, man. When he saw the booking sheet that we were on the fucking road with him, he's like, oh my God, I got to team with this guy every night. So now Raven's a serious character, and Malenko's this fucking serious character. I'm a goofball, so I can do whatever the fuck I want. Me and Raven get in the ring, and Raven's sitting in the corner doing his fucking thing, and his hair's in his face. And I'm sitting there, and fucking Malenko comes in, he jumps over, and then he looks at fucking Mongo. And you see Mongo grab the rope, and you can tell he's going to try to jump over. And we all go, oh no. And fucking sure enough, poor Mongo catches his foot and fucking falls. And now Malenko's trying to be serious, and it's his partner, and he just puts his head down. And I just see his shoulders shake. And I look at Raven, and he's totally shaking. I was like, oh my God, poor fucking... That match, it was impossible to come back from that match. I mean, we went home early in that one. Mongo was not good. Rodman was a douche. Didn't take it serious. Showed up, definitely seemed impaired, which is dangerous. Anytime you wrestle impaired, but he's showing up to train in something he doesn't know what the fuck he's doing. Showing up impaired. Smelled like shit. Out and out shit. It smelled horrible. It smelled like he was partying for 3 or 4 days and didn't shower. It was horrible working. And Malone was the absolute opposite. Took it serious, worked hard, had good ideas. Rodman was so bad, Hulk had to threaten him. Hulk went straight up to him and said, Dennis, calm the fuck down and relax. You got to work with us. We're all working together. You can either work with us or work against us. If you work against us, you're not going to be happy. And that was the end of that. I mean, once Hulk, I never saw Hulk do anything like that, man. I was like, holy fuck. I couldn't believe I just saw Hulk Hogan threaten Dennis Rodman. Right. Rodman back down. No doubt, Rodman back down. Leno took it pretty serious. We worked with him about 2 hours a day. Right after, and Leno would get up at 8, supposedly, go to the studio, work on a show, tape the show at 4, finish up around 5 or 6, come work with us for 2 hours, supposedly go back to the studio, work until midnight writing the final next day's show, and did it every day. He only no-showed us once, and it wasn't no-show, he called.
Right.
He said, I'm not showing up. And he took it pretty serious. And he was real serious. He didn't joke. He wasn't funny. And then on Saturday, he showed up when we did training on Saturday. He did hang out with us afterwards and tell jokes and shit. He was cool.
Huh. Did you get a feeling that the business was being exposed too much during that match?
I Man, I would have to know what the time frame is. I know when I first got to WCW, and even first when I first started doing the Mortis, I had an AOL. Back then, it was the online shit was a little different, but AOL gave me my own message board, I think, or something. I remember being real specific about not exposing the business. That would have been 97, 98. Do you know when that match was, the Malone one?
Probably like 97, 98.
Probably a little later, because I don't think I was Mortis on that one. I think I was on that show. I think I might have done the three-way with Perry and Raven, which would have been a little later. Now, it's amazing to me. I get the timeline so confused. I don't know. To say the business was exposed anytime after 84 and Stossel, you know, if you want to believe, you're going to believe. If you don't want to believe, you're not going to believe. But if you want the truth, just go back to 1984 and watch the John Stossel report. I mean, he exposed everything. You heard Bob Backlund talking in the ring, saying what he's going to do. You know, Eddie Mansfield showed that we blade. I mean, it was exposed in 84. For us to even try to hold on until 97 was pushing it.
Right.
You know, and I think there's a fine line between. I mean, yeah, I would have loved to work in the 60s and 70s when they believed it. You know, it would have been so much easier. But, you know, after 84 and Stossel, it's amazing to me that I was still getting a question in 97. You know, it's amazing to me. I really do believe it, whether you're going to, if you want to believe, you can force yourself to believe it. If you don't want to believe, you're going to see how fake it really is. You know, I saw in 84 when I went to see it, you know, when I was fourth row ringside for Night of Champions, and those are some of the best in the world. And I saw daylight between punch. All you have to see is daylight between one punch, and the guy sell it, and you know it's fake.
Yeah.
Man, there's that fine line between insulting people's intelligence by telling them it's real, and, you know, I'm kind of glad we've gone where we've gone, and there's no going back now. You know, but no, I don't, you know, and a lot of people say the death of WCW was putting the belt on David Arquette. My God, WCW was so dead by that point anyway.
Yeah.
At least the hole was already in the Titanic. We might not have sunk yet, but there was no saving us.
Memories of working on the movie Ready to Rumble.
Awesome experience. Again, stressful, man. You know, you put a bunch of wrestlers in an environment they're not used to, and then you're dealing with people that are on tight schedules, producers, directors, who are used to having people be very professional. You have a bunch of people show up high on pills and drugs and stuff. I was in a tough spot, man. I was the go-between between these fucking fucked up wrestlers.
Any guys you want to name that were fucked up? Or?
No, but watch the movie, you can probably figure it out. And then, you know, there were certain stunts in that movie that four-post thing. They call it the four-post massacre. And we had to do that shoot legit, man. I had to lay there as the king. And for people who don't know, I was the stunt double for Jimmy the King, who was Oliver Platt. Anytime there's any physical contact, it's pretty much me. Oliver didn't do much. But we had to do it with me laying in the ring and four guys jumping off all four corners and all landing pretty solid. To do that with guys that, you know, I'm trying to think of the four who did it. I know at least one wasn't fucked up. The other three might have been. I don't really remember, but there was definitely incidents during the filming of that movie. But that stunt was fucking crazy. I mean, I don't know if you've ever seen four people in a real wrestling. I don't know if, and we had to really do it. And we had to do it live. We had to do it, you know, roll, and then the crowd gets into it, and it's felt very real. And you don't see fucking, the timing on that was rough. And that was hard. It was hard being the go-between for the wrestlers and the production people, and that was tough. It was hard. Kurt Angle again. I mean, not Kurt. Kurt Hennig was again he's hysterical, man. I love Kurt. Me and him bonded a little bit on that movie too. But right after the 4-point massacre, they all beat the fuck out of the King, and I was down there for that. And Kurt was fucking kicking the shit out of me, dude. Because you notice it's a movie, and it's like that's the way he was, man. It was fucking funny, but you watch that movie, that motherfucker's stiffing the shit out of me.
Huh. Did you ever get to talk to Jesse about the Jesse Ventura story?
Yeah, at fucking WrestleMania 20. That was kind of WrestleMania 20 was a pretty cathartic thing for me. I had just been fired in February of 2006. WrestleMania had come full circle, 20 years, back in the Garden, where pretty much, in my mind, my career kind of started with Hulk winning the belt. '84. That's when I started saying, I'm going to do this. So from '84 to 2006 for 20 years. In those 20 years, I succeeded in my dream of becoming a wrestler. Won belts, U.S. title and tag belts in both groups, WCW and WWF, and had my career with WWE and being fired. It felt very final for me. It felt like I'd come full circle. It felt like that. It felt right for me to end it there. And as much as I think Vince mistreated me in WWE, and God knows what factors led to the firing, I did backstage, and I have a picture too. But after it was all over, after WrestleMania 20 was done, I went to the room where Vince and Stephanie and Linda was there. I'm trying to remember. Shane was there too. All four of them, and I said, I don't know if you guys know, but I got fired. That's a good chance you did. I said, but I just want to thank you guys, and that was heartfelt. And some might think it's hypocritical of a lot of things I've said since then, and a lot of things I've done since then. But I'll never take that back that I thanked him. He did. He let my dreams come true. He didn't have to hire me. He didn't have to give me the U.S. title. Didn't have to give me the WWE tag titles. More than anything, and those were big goals. Winning belts is big. It shows that the company, it's a work because every belt is given to you, whatever, but it shows the company's behind you to some extent when they put a strap on there. So it does mean something. And more than anything, working in Gun, I got to work in Madison Square Garden. I grew up going there. I was there when Hulk won it. So when I got to work, I worked Jeff Hardy in there. So it was really cool. Those were some huge streams. And it wouldn't have came true without them. So I don't mind that I thanked them. And there was even a sign in the crowd. Some guy had up a huge one that said, "Thanks, Vince." If you watch the paper, you can see it. As soon as the show was over and the confetti was falling and Eddie and Chris were in the ring, which is just a great moment. And I'm sitting there watching. These are guys I think should have the belt at WrestleMania. It just felt perfect. I ran out there and I took a picture with the guy. Thanks, Vince. So I have a picture that the confetti falling and me and this guy holding the Thanks, Vince sign. I do appreciate that I got that opportunity. Doesn't mean he's not a douchebag. Doesn't mean he's not a scumbag and two-faced and evil. I do believe he, in many ways, an evil guy. But he did do something nice for me, and I don't feel two-faced for thanking him for giving me that opportunity.
What about Jesse Ventura? Did you?
Yeah, so, part of the whole coming full circle, I knew Bobby Heenan was going to be there, so I wanted to clear that thing up with him. When I did the Jesse Ventura story, I was told by the producers and stuff to be controversial, to call Jesse out, because they wanted Jesse to acknowledge the movie. They figured once he acknowledged it, it would do a ratings thing. So I had to be a prick, man. I don't know. I figured Jesse would know I'm playing a character, or at least playing the role of a dick who's bitter against Jesse. I remember I was calling him Jesse the hypocrite Ventura during the press stuff. We did a lot of press for that movie. I told those stupid motherfuckers though. I said, "You're putting this." First of all, we're going head to head with the biggest miniseries ever made, Cleopatra, which fucking destroyed us in the ratings. And it aired on a Sunday, but it also aired against the WWE pay-per-view. I said, why the fuck are you going to air a wrestling movie against the WWE pay-per-view? That whole audience that watches that pay-per-view would be watching you guys, but they're not. And it was the night Owen died. It was the night Jesse Ventura aired. It was one of the few WWE pay-per-views I actually didn't watch because I was watching the movie. So, I felt bad afterwards that I had to be so brutal on Jesse, but I figured he, either didn't hear it, didn't care, or would understand why I was doing it. He's from Hollywood. You would think he'd know that. But he was at WrestleMania 20, so I'm like, well, I might as well try to clear that one up too. That was a mistake. So I introduced myself. I told them who I was, and I said, I'm sorry about the press I did. I was like, they asked me to be brutal on you just to try to get you to talk about it. And boy, he shot, man. Not so much on me, because I don't think he heard or knew who I was.
Right.
But man, he was pissed about that movie because, Jesse's a businessman first and foremost, and he wanted money for that movie, and they weren't going to pay him. So he was against that movie from the get-go because they wouldn't pay him. And there's one of the producers or executive producers knew him or something, and he thought it was a stab in the back that they did it and they didn't pay him or they didn't offer him money. But, at least, what? That apology wasn't for him. And even the Bobby Heenan apology wasn't for him. Those apologies, or at least explanations of what I did, was for me.
Right.
I felt bad about what I did, and I wanted to clear it up.
Any good Raven stories?
Oh boy, Raven Bowls. I'll think about it. I don't think I have anything off the top of my head.
Okay.
Nope.
What we're going to talk about is lawsuit later on, and your thoughts on the current lawsuit with Scotty and all. Do that at the end. What about working with Perry?
Wow, man. Perry was an interesting guy, man. A lot of people didn't understand him. Some didn't get along with him. Some were afraid of him, rightfully so. I think Perry's a tough guy, and I think I didn't like it too much. I didn't mind it when Wrath called me crazy, but I could understand why people would get upset if someone calls him crazy.
Right.
I don't want to call Perry crazy, but he's different. I loved working with Perry, man. He was open to do almost anything. And more than I think anybody I worked with. And it's weird how you connect with people and you mesh with people in the ring. But, boy, it was so easy. He was an A to Z guy. I don't know if he always is, but, and by A to Z, some people like calling it the ring. And some people like being Macho Man and calling it A to Z, knowing what, and I was always an A to Z guy. And, in some ways, I kind of regret that. I wish I would have been a little bit more. I think matches look a little better if you can do it. In my early stage of my career, I could go out there and just work and not know. But once I got on TV, man, I was so nervous about fucking up. So nervous about looking bad or exposing the business. It's funny we talk about exposing the business, but I didn't want my match to be the one that showed a missed punch. So I would get very nervous. So I always wanted to know from A to Z what I was doing. And that, it's tough, man, when you work someone that doesn't want to do that, especially if they're above you, man. Like every time, the 2 times I worked Jericho, once on Raw and once on Nitro, a motherfucker made me call it out there. And those ended up being 2 really good matches, really good. It's one of my best WWE matches against Jericho. I wish I was more confident during my career that I would have went out there and just winged it. That's what Flair does a lot, I think.
Right.
Hulk, definitely. It'd be real interesting to know when Hulk and Macho, or Macho and Flair wrestled, how they figured that out, man. Because I know Macho was a big A to Z guy. And I know Hulk and Flair both like calling it out there. So I'd be intrigued to know how they worked that out.
What about your matches with Bill Goldberg?
One thing about Bill, he put over, I think I've read and heard him at least 2 or 3 times say that me and Chavo are the 2 guys that took the best spears ever. I like that he at least respected that and recognized that me and Chavo took good spears. Bill, he was very, very overly protective of his character, I think, but I guess it worked. 10 years from now, 20 years from now, people are definitely going to remember Bill Goldberg. I don't know if they'll remember Chris Kanyon. So maybe he had the right idea. It's not my style. I don't know if I could have played the politics or protected my character that much at the expense of others and been comfortable with who I am and, look at myself in the mirror. When I was getting some good steam and I was relatively over, enough that they had a match scheduled for me and Bill on Nitro, 8 minutes. And there were definitely times in my career I would have said there's no way I should be able to go 8 minutes with a Flair or a Goldberg or a Macho. At this stage, Goldberg, I thought he could afford an 8-minute match with Kanyon. And he fucking raised hell. And before you knew it, it was who better than Kanyon? Turn, spear, jackhammer, done. I think it would have helped the Kanyon character at that point to do an 8-minute match with Goldberg. I don't think Goldberg needed to beat me in fucking 30 seconds. You got to live with yourself. No one knows what would have happened if I had an 8 minutes. Would it made much of a difference in my career? No, probably not. If he would have worked a full program with Jericho, things might have been a lot different. For Jericho, for WWE, for Goldberg, who knows?
Right.
But, from what I understand, he put the kibosh on the Jericho angle. And that angle was, I thought it had legs, man. I thought, I guess because I grew up loving Flair, I was very much of the Flair idea of I'll work with anybody and virtually put almost anyone over. I put everyone. I never refused to do a job. I know Flair did a couple of times. Luger, I think when he went to WWE, I think he refused to put the belt on Luger. But mostly Flair did whatever the company asked. I feel better about my career that I did that. That I went his route as opposed to the Goldberg route of being overprotective of my character at the expense of other people.
As far as Luger goes, what are your memories of Lex? What do you think about his current situation?
I talked to Paige and DDP and him talk, off camera, obviously, on the phone, and there'd be no reason for Lex to lie to DDP in that scenario. From what I understand from Paige, that Lex is 100% legit about his beliefs and trying to right wrongs and be a good person and all that. My experiences with Lex, man, he was a charismatic guy, sweetheart, very, at least to your face, very, very, at times almost overly friendly, to the point, so overly friendly, I always thought it was fake. I did. I believe it was fake. But he, and I didn't hear him talking bad about me behind my back either. A lot of times you do hear people talking nice to your face, and then you find out later what they say behind your back. I never heard him say anything behind my back. I always just kind of assumed he did. Certain things, like I remember him walking through the airport, and he may say he never turned down an interview. An autograph, and maybe he hasn't. But I've seen him walking, and somebody be, "Hey, Lex, I get an interview, autograph," and he goes, "Sure," and just keep walking. He didn't turn him down. And then I'd be walking. It wasn't just me and Lex, but me, Lex, and a few guys are walking, and then I'd kind of look at him like, well, I'm not going to stop. If he wants to walk me, I'll sign.
Right.
So that was his attitude, and I would stop.
Right.
Personally, I stop usually. It was weird. I've seen Shawn Michaels do the exact same thing, but worse. I've seen Shawn out and out just ignore people. Walk, and kids. I like Shawn, and literally, I think Flair's the best of all time, no doubt. If you take everything into, I think technically in the ring, Shawn's probably better. He can do more. Maybe even emotionally. There's interviews and things that Shawn have done that conveyed emotion better than Rick did it. But I think if you have to take everything, carrying a promotion, interviews, carrying an opponent, I think Flair has to be your number one. But Shawn's right up there. So I respect Shawn, what he's done. But I can't respect what I've seen him do to fans. Maybe he'll hate me after seeing this, but man, look in the mirror and tell me if you really have not treated fans poorly.
You talked a little bit earlier on about Bam Bam Bigelow. Let's talk about the Jersey Triad gimmick. What are your memories of that?
It's weird because they announced me from New York every point up until they put me in the Triad. And I was part of the Jersey Triad. I guess the Northeast Triad type thing. Incredible for me. For Bam Bam and Paige to agree to put me in a tag team, I definitely wasn't at that level yet. Bam Bam basically fucking main evented at WrestleMania when he wrestled LT. So he was, and to me, definitely, you definitely get a different perspective when you're on the apron watching somebody wrestle, man. It's different than being in the first row. It's different than being on TV. And knowing what Bam Bam, he wasn't so much an A to Z guy, man. He could do it out there, and he was smooth and confident. Really, everyone loves talking great about dead people. I would have always talked about Bam Bam, live, dead, even if he fucking hated me. It is what it is, man. Bam Bam was one of the best big men of all time. Phenomenal.
You also got to work with Saturn and Benoit as a team.
Yes. Actually, I pinned Benoit for a tag belt. Funny thing is, I'm actually, as far as WCW belts, I think I'm -2. I think I lost it 3 times.
Right.
Won it once. Raven and Saturn, I think, were champs. Raven got hurt, and I filled in for Raven. So I didn't win the belt. But then I laid down for Paige. I walked in and took a punch, and I was working with him. So I lost the belt there. Then I was with Paige when we lost it back to Perry. So I lost it twice before I ever won it. But then on a pay-per-view, me and Paige beat Saturn and Benoit for the belts. And I've said it, I actually said it on that CNN documentary after the Benoit thing. They interviewed me about Benoit. And the one thing about Chris, man, it was always about the match. A lot of people are about themselves, making sure we talked about Bill Goldberg. He was very concerned about making himself look good, making sure he looked good, sometimes at the expense of a match or at the expense of his opponent. For Chris, it was always, what can we do to make this match better? And when you're working with somebody like that, man, it's fun.
What are your thoughts on the Benoit tragedy?
I've been, like I said before, in the nut house 3 times. And when you go in there for psychological disorders, like I have, I've been diagnosed as bipolar. I was inpatient 3 times now. Short though, 4 days one time, 7 days the other. One time I did a halfway house. So I was inpatient for 10 days in the hospital and then 20 days or so in this halfway house, which is you don't go home. You got to be in at a certain time. You got to be up at a certain time. Just monitor you. When you do that, they put you in with drug addicts. Very few people are in there just for psychological. Most people who have psychological problems go off and do drugs. The drugs and the alcohol is a symptom of the psychological problem. So they treat us all together because the reason why people do drugs and alcohol is because they're mentally ill. So that's what they're treating. They're not treating the alcohol or the drugs. They're treating the mental illness. So we all get treated together. I've seen what mental illness can do. I've seen people do things that they would never, ever do in their normal day. The brain's an organ like every other organ. Your heart can get fucked up, your liver gets fucked up, and when your brain gets fucked up, it's no longer you. And I knew Chris for over 10 years, and the Chris I knew would never have done what Chris Benoit did. So I'm not going to judge a man based on what I know mental illness can do. I'm not going to judge his entire existence and entirely who he is based on what happened after mental illness and 3 days of whatever happened. I got to base how I knew him for 10 years. And the Chris I knew wouldn't have done that. So I can't judge the Chris that did that because I don't know that Chris. I can judge the Chris I knew for 10 years before that. He was a good guy. I saw Chris, Nancy, and the son a year almost to the day before the event at Six Flags in Georgia. And I was on a roller coaster and I was in line to get on. He was getting on and he saw me. And he said, wait after you get off. So, after I got off, there he was. And, I said hi to him and Nancy and they looked like the happiest family, and that's the Chris I remember. I don't know the Chris that did what he did. Mm-hmm. And, anytime something like that happens, everyone has to sit there and think, how did it happen? What happened? I mean, it's only one man's opinion. My guess is Chris and Nancy had some kind of fight. Chris lost his cool and, became whatever he became, became the monster he became, and lost control and became the mentally ill Chris. And probably got into a fight with her and, lost control, killed her. My guess is at that point he realized the son was Daniel, right?
Yes.
I've seen Daniel. There was talk if he was mentally ill or not. From being around him a couple of times, I think maybe there was something going on. I can't say for sure. I think there might have been. Regardless, and if there was something going on, I think it would add to this even more. I think Chris probably, after he did what he did with Nancy, probably said, and who knows what would happen to Daniel after this, who would have taken care of him. But he would have had to live with the fact that his dad killed his mom and then killed himself or was in jail or whatever. And maybe Chris realized, knowing Daniel better than probably anyone, that Daniel would be better off not having to live with that fact. And then, my guess is that the Daniel killing was a mercy killing. And then, instead of dealing with the consequences, took his own life. But it's one person's opinion. It's that story makes me feel better about the person I knew. It doesn't justify what he did, but it puts it into perspective, and I have the unique perspective of having been in a mental institution, seeing very whacked out people, and then seeing them after the mental institution, or in the halfway house, or in outpatient, and seeing them as a very different person than when I saw in the mental institution. Those people, to me, those are two different people. The person I saw in the mental institute and in the outpatient.
What about working with Sting? Memories of working with Sting?
I didn't get to work with Sting much. I did one match at the very end of Men at Work, one-on-one. I don't know if he was burnt out or he respected what I could do, whatever. But he said, "Dude, he goes, I have nothing." He goes, "Whatever you want to do, just tell me. We'll go out and do it."
Right.
I don't know if that was common for Sting. Sting, man. If anyone should give Flair a present every year, I think Sting should. I think Flair in many ways made Sting what he is, and he's been living off that fame for a long time. Sting was talented, had great charisma, but without that initial angle with Flair that got him so over and pretty much made him a household name in WCW and NWA, I just don't know how long the career Sting would have had without Rick.
You also worked with Harlem Heat. Thoughts on those guys, Booker and your brother?
I think Stevie should be buying Booker a present every year, too. Both really good guys. Booker, phenomenal. Oh, my God. So happy. I was absolutely ecstatic when he won that title. If you remember, when he won the title, it was after the Hogan-Jarrett thing. I actually wrestled Booker earlier that night, one-on-one, when I was doing the Positively Canyon thing, the same night he won the title. I actually pinned Booker the night he won the world title. So me and him had gone through that feud, and we had, me and Bam Bam also feuded with those guys. They beat us for the belts.
Right.
Road Wild. So I had a decent history with Booker. I was one of the first people to congratulate him when he came to that curtain, and I was so happy for him. I mean, it was a weird way for him to win it. It was a tough way for him to win it. It was a lot of controversy that night. He didn't even know if he's going to have the match with Jarrett, And if he did have the match, you didn't know if he was going to go over up until minutes before he went out there, unless he was in on the whole thing. Who knows? But I was real happy for him. You know, he worked hard. He's a great worker, still doing it, which is awesome. No, it was funny because then after all that history we had, and we did get along well. And he worked snug, and I worked snug too. He always called me out when I worked snug. I never called him out though. But then it was funny because when I finally got a belt from WWE, when I got the U.S. title, it was, if you recall, he was champion, and he gave it to me in the ring. And the way I found out was through him. We were, I think, in Pittsburgh. And he goes, "Did you hear what we're doing tonight?" And I said, "No." He goes, "I'm giving you the title, bro." I'm like, "What?" He's like, "I'm handing it to you, the belt. You're the U.S. champ." I keep talking about me crying, but I fucking went right there, right in front of him. But it was, I was real happy it was him that told me, and that it was coming from him. It was, you know, I have a good history book. I'm very happy for him. I still love watching him, too. It's one of the few guys I really still love watching.
Memories of the Champagne Canyon gimmick.
I was out in California, doing the whole Ready to Rumble thing. I met with Russo in Vegas when we did a Vegas pay-per-view. I drove over from LA. First time I got to meet Vince, and we talked a little bit about what we were going to do when I came back. And I think it was his idea to play up the whole Hollywood thing. I was out in LA with Shane Helms, Hurricane. Me and him were the two that were working on that movie together. When Eric sent me out there to do that movie, I said, "I need somebody with me. I don't want to do it by myself. I don't want to be by myself."
Right.
I had just hired 10 cruiserweights. Eric asked me to hire 10 cruiserweights that looked like they were about 18. He had an idea for a Saved by the Bell type show on Saturday, based on a bunch of kids that had their own wrestling league. And then the first hour would be them in high school having fights and stuff, as a like Saved by the Bell. And then the second hour would be an actual wrestling show where those actors actually wrestle each other on the show. It was an interesting idea. Peter Angle, who does Saved by the Bell, was backing it. So that's why I had to hire those guys. So it was right after I hired them, and then they were sending me out to LA. I'm like, "I don't want to be by myself." He goes, "Well, you can't have anybody off the roster. Take one of your cruiserweights." So I had met Shane a couple of times. He stayed at my house. I had a big house in Atlanta. And those guys had him and Shannon Moore had to come over from the Carolinas and be at the school 5 days a week. So they crashed at my house 4 nights. I had a shitload of rooms. So those guys crashed there. So I got to know them. I got to know Joey Matthews pretty well. He was my second pick. If I didn't take Shane, I was going to take Joey. But Shane agreed to do it. I mean, he went out there and he knew Champagne. Champagne, I think his name is, from...
yeah, Omega.
Yeah, good old Champagne. Everyone knows Champagne. So that's where the name came from. So I called him up and told him the gimmick we were doing, and that would it be all right if I love the whole first name Sham, last name Payne.
Right.
I mean, I wasn't going to be able to use that, but I like the Champagne name. So I called him and asked if I could use it. He said, "Fine." Told Russo, "Yeah, let's go with the Champagne." So they made they got all those fake bottles and everything. And then he calls me back and goes, "Don't use it." I'm like, "Dude, I already told him we could." He's like, "Well, I'm going to sue you." I'm like, "Don't sue me, dude."
Right.
Like, what are you going to do? You know, I got to do what I got to do. I already told Russo. I'm not going to, this first thing I'm doing with Russo, I'm not going to fucking tell him to cancel the whole gimmick. I'm like, if you got to sue WCW, sue them. I'm like, you gave me verbal permission, and that's why they're doing it.
Did he ever sue?
I don't even know if he looked into it. I never heard from him again. I told him I didn't want to hear from him again.
Was it uncomfortable playing a womanizer?
Very. Watch the tapes, man. I'm very uncomfortable. I hated it. It felt very unreal and felt forced every fucking time. I hated it. I hated it. I thought it was wrong to do, too.
Were you able to play the gimmick outside the ring and build the expensive cars and first-class airlines? To WCW?
Yeah. WCW paid that whole thing. No. Vince did do that. Very few people know. Vince did that for $1 Million Man. Ted DiBiase.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, no. They didn't do it.
Did it ever bother you that some people might have looked at the character as a Godfather ripoff at all? Or? And they pulled the character pretty quick, too. Why is that?
Because I think they pulled it because it was getting somewhat over, especially the bottles.
Right.
I think the character itself wasn't getting too over, but every time I used that bottle over someone's head, it got a huge reaction, and I was getting a lot of wins because of that. I used the fake bottle. And people, I think, knew, but the good thing about those stupid bottles, the fake glass, when it breaks, it makes little teeny splinters. And like when I hit Bam Bam, because his head has no hair, it made a lot of teeny cuts, and blood came down. So I think it added to people thinking, "Holy shit, this might be real."
Yeah.
And, Sullivan came to me and said, "Hey, they told us it's too violent, you can't do it." And then, every week after that, people hit each other with bats and crowbars, and I'm thinking, I found out it was a crock of shit. He didn't want me to do it anymore for some reason.
Did you get along with Vince Russo?
We butted heads on, I think we're both New Yorkers, we're both opinionated. I just, ever since the whole thing with DDP, where he wanted me to imitate my friend, well, my friend asked me not to do it anymore.
Right.
And and the whole thing was, I was a pawn in the game. Those two were playing with each other. I thought that was wrong and horrible. He ended up doing some show at a church in Georgia years after that. He booked it. It was literally in a church. Very weird.
The Ring of Glory show or whatever.
Whatever it was.
Yeah.
And the weirdest thing is they brought up Jim Mitchell, and Jim was all over the fucking channel. I'm thinking, this guy's a shoot Satanist, man. Seems a little, it's just weird. The whole thing was weird, but I took, I think I still get along with him. It's hard in wrestling because the line between personal friendships and professional, it's so blurred, man. It's so blurred, and you don't know who is your friend. You really don't. You don't know who your friends are. And you find out a little bit more when you get fired and you're not around anymore. I used to get all the dirt sheets for free. As soon as I got fired, I stopped getting them.
All right.
So, it's a weird thing to consider somebody a friend in wrestling. I'm glad I'm back in New York where I grew up with a lot of people. I'm still with those guys. I'll say that much.
Memories of the angle with Judy Bagwell, and what do you think of Marcus?
Marcus was another one, almost exactly like Lex, man. He was so overly friendly, you just thought it was fake. Then again, I never, he didn't make much of it. You didn't really see him talking about too many people behind their back, so maybe it was legit. I think he was pretty protective of his character. To have his mom do that and allow her to do that, and her to work so hard at it, yeah, I respected that. The Bagwell angle happened right after I did the whole, who better than Kanyon? The whole positively Kanyon thing. I did those random Kanyon cuts. I went from that, that basically came off of an angle with DDP. Moved on to work with Booker. Beat Booker the night he wins the title. Now, I knew where I was at that point. And I knew after Booker that Booker's first opponent for the pay-per-view was just going to be Steiner. The handwriting was on the wall. Booker kind of knew it. They made it pretty obvious that's where they were headed. What I pitched at that point, what I thought made sense was I should start claiming I should be the champ. I beat Booker. It's a matter of hours. I pinned the champ 2 hours before he won the belt. If anyone deserves a shot, it should be me. I definitely never thought I should have the first pay-per-view match against. But I thought what would help that progression of elevation. And it was believable. When I beat Booker, it wasn't like, holy shit. When I beat Booker, it was like, that's where the angle's headed.
Right.
It wasn't clean, but from the heel, I don't think I should have went clean. I thought at that point I should kind of be, and I'm a big fan of old school stuff as far as, if you're going to have Booker and Scott Steiner on the next pay-per-view, never give it to them for free, ever. Maybe in tag matches. So I thought I should be kind of, and I think this worked, Steiner's stooge at this point. Still do the positively Kanyon thing, but me and Steiner team against Booker. And anytime, I'll fight Booker, and then Steiner comes out, and we both beat the fuck out of him.
Right.
And that way, you can give a little bit of Steiner and Booker, and it makes sense because I have an issue with Booker because I beat him literally 2 hours before he won the world title. Keeps me in the mix, elevates me, but, I don't think it would have taken away from Scott. I was pretty over, probably the most over I've ever been in my career. Was the night I beat Booker. Up to that angle, they built it up, it was perfect. To go from there to working an angle where I'm wrestling Judy Bagwell, Mark Madden, Gene Okerlund.
Yeah, I was going to ask you.
If it was me and Buff in a serious angle, I'm not saying that would have elevated me, but it would have kept me where I was with the Booker thing. It would have been close.
Okay.
To go from there to working with those, it's not a shot at Buff, but that angle worked for Buff. As far as I was pretty over at that point, it probably was all right for him.
Right.
It didn't work for me. It wasn't where I should have been at that point.
Okay. Let me just.
Yep.
Let me pause this for a second. How did you hear that WCW was sold? And what are your memories of the final show?
It's hard to be quick on that one. All right. Leading up to it, I was in the loop with Bischoff. I heard his group is definitely buying it. It was talking moving us out to to Vegas.
Right.
Do all our TV tapings there. I had already looked at houseboats to buy on Lake Mead.
Wow.
On the way they were having me come down 4 days early. I was going down on Thursday to do the final show. Just so happens my contract, if they did not give me 30 days notice by that Sunday, they automatically had to pay me for 3 more months. My contract was coming up anyway.
Right.
So I think with everything going on, no matter what happens, I'm going to get paid for the next 3 months when we're probably going to all be off. Because they talked about having time off in between. This was our season finale. Literally get to the airport. I see Ernest Miller. Ernest says, the deal fell through. Ernest says, the deal fell through. Bischoff ain't getting it. I don't believe it. I'm like, yeah, whatever. I was like, well, regardless, we're still, we're not going out of business.
Right.
It's the last thing on my mind. Literally, from the car to the ticket window, I get the call from Johnny Ace. We're not renewing your contract. So, it's a bummer, but what the hell's going on? On the plane, I find out that Vince might have bought us. So I'm like, holy shit. So as soon as I land in Panama City, I call up Jim Ross. I'm like, Jim, I know it's been a while, but if that offer's still on the table that you gave me, a while ago, I want in.
Right.
I'm like, they just gave me my 30-day notice. So now we don't know about fucking if the whole Vince thing is real or not, man. None of us are for, no one's for sure, man. It's really up in the air. The most surreal thing to me, remember, this is a war. We hate WCW and WWF. They hate us. And I've been backstage 100 times now, WCW, thousands of times, whatever. And you have, every door has a sign, wardrobe or, females or whatever. When I was back there was a WCW sign on one of the doors that said WWF. I was like, oh. It was one of the most surreal things I've ever seen in my entire life. It was just so unfucking real.
Huh.
But we still didn't know, man. And then it was weird because, we all meet in a room. Of course, they show up a little late. Well, Shane McMahon walks in. It was fucking hard. It was absolutely the most, it felt like a dream more than anything. One thing Shane said that I think was untrue, he said every single person in this room will have an opportunity if they want one. I don't think that ever came true. I think there were people that wanted it and never got it. It was weird. They had their own security guards. They were in a room that very easily had access to leave, which I thought was kind of weird. I was supposed to be on the show. That's part of the reason why Johnny Ace called me. He said, even though we're letting you go, do you still want to be on that final show? I'm like, fuck yeah. I spent 6 years in this company, man. I want to be part of the show. I was going to be in an 8-man tag or something. Animal was going to be in it. I know that. I think M.I. Smooth was going to be in it. Ernest, I forget exactly what the match was going to be, but my match got yanked. I remember being in the gorilla position, and as Vince is cutting his promo and saying, yeah, I'll sign the papers when Ted Turner shows up at WrestleMania and kisses my ass, I looked at Terry Taylor and he went, Terry had no idea.
Right.
None of us knew if that was a shoot or not. And I'm thinking that's why they're located where they are. They're going to fucking cut this promo and get the fuck out of here. And this is a swerve and they're going to fuck us all over. They're fucking Ted Turner, they're fucking WCW. None of us knew what was real and what wasn't at that point. That's why it was such a powerful angle. For Vince to drop the ball on that, we could sit here for fucking 10 hours saying how it could have been done better, how his fucking ego got in the way, how he fucked up the biggest angle in wrestling history. For anyone to sit there and say, and obviously I have issues with Vince,
right?
For anyone to say he's a fucking genius after XFL, World Bodybuilding Federation, ICO Pro, the dropping of the ball, the destroying of wrestling in general, it's dumbfounding. He's made fucking fuck up after fuck up after fuck up. He's somewhat successful despite himself.
Right.
Plain and simple.
Do you feel he did a WCW thing just because he didn't want to put over the company? He just wanted...
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it was consciously done, but his ego gets in the way, and he said, "Fuck him."
Right.
I also happened to be in a fucking I got lucky, man. I got hungry later in the day. I was in the catering when there was somewhat of a symbol. It was supposed to be production people only, and I didn't see that sign on the door. The catering hall was huge, so I'm sitting there eating, not realizing. And there was the symbolic handing over. David Crockett, got up and said, "Everyone, work your ass off tonight. Whatever's going to happen is going to happen, but work your ass off." And I want to, officially announce that Vince McMahon is taking this company. And Shane got up, and man, there was almost not a dry eye in the fucking catering place. And to look around and realize that Vince was pretty much putting all these people out of work, I was like, that's when I started realizing. Shane can say whatever he wants. Anyone who wants an opportunity, it's going to be good for him. They put a lot of people out of business that day. They put a lot of people on the street that day as far as they had a job and now they don't.
How did you find out about yourself?
Well, I called,
right.
I got the call from Johnny Ace on the way to the building.
But you were retained, right?
No. And that was another thing. Diana Myers, who was a lawyer for WCW, pretty much right after I got thrown off the cage, Triple Cage with the match with Jarrett and Page and Arquette. I had a match with Mike Awesome that night. And then the whole, and that was a weird thing, man. Cause I felt with the Triple Cage, the fans were going to expect something weird, or probably, just basically a big bump or something. So when I pitched that angle to Eric made it happen. And then later I found out that it was the building where Owen died. I said, maybe we shouldn't do it. And, Eric said, yeah, whatever, you have good karma, nothing's going to happen. I'm like, no, it's not about that. It's about disrespect and stuff. I was like, at least ask Brett if it's all right. So Eric promised me he would ask Brett if it's all right for me to take the bump in that building. So I had a decent match with Mike Awesome. Crowd was really into it. Then I get thrown off the cage at the end of the night. Right after that, I had to renegotiate my contract. I went to Bischoff. He wasn't dealing with it anymore. Now, this Diana Myers, who's not a wrestling fan, was a lawyer and hated all the wrestlers because we were all making more money than her, and she was a lawyer. She fucking hated us, hated wrestling. And she was right under Brad Siegel, who's another scumbag. So I went to Bischoff. I'm like, I know you're not dealing with this anymore, but if you were me, how much would you ask for? He goes, if I was still in charge, you'd get $500,000 a year, especially after the match you had tonight and getting thrown off the cage and you work your ass off for the company. You've been here forever. He's like, if they give you anything less than $500,000, they're slapping you in the face. So I went in, met with Diana Myers, who's a cunt, and I told him I was making $270 a year at this point. I think I asked for $355, $650, based on what Eric told me.
Right.
So, average $500 over 3 years. She said, I'm not even going to tell you what we're going to offer you because it would be insulting. I said, you telling me that is insulting.
Right.
I was like, don't tell me anything then. So they came back with a horrible plan, but the way they had it was, if this is the contract, they had a graph of how many dates you would work. These are how many years, first year, second year, third year. So up here, if you only work little dates in the first year, you hardly make anything. But this number down here is ridiculous, like $750,000. If after 3 years you work 200 and something dates, you're gonna make a ridiculous money.
Right.
That's the contract they give me. Knowing that these motherfuckers are cutting out all house shows and combining Nitro, and knowing it and asking me to sign this contract, it was fucking shady business. It was a scumbag move, and it's Diana Myers, who's a cunt, and Brad Siegel, who I think was working for Vince McMahon from inside to fuck up that company, because Bischoff's group, a year before it sold for $4 million, or whatever the fuck Vince bought it for,
offered you.
Yeah, $250 million, and fucking WCW said no, it's not enough. A year later, Brad accepts $4 fucking million. That's fucking, in my mind, that's fucking internal sabotage. And man, I heard a long time, once I got there and I heard Brad Siegel, someone told me that Brad Siegel in the 80s worked for Vince McMahon on the pay-per-view end of things. And that people feel that he had a relationship with Vince all the way through, and that he internally sabotaged that company. And man, if you look at the facts, man, I would not doubt it, man.
I guess for you, your initial meetings of Vince again, what were they like?
Back to the original question. I want to give the history of Diana Myers. So I get the day of the show, the final show.
Right.
I look for Diana Myers. Because I want to know now. I got released, the Thursday before the final show. I got released from my contract, which was running out in a month anyway. But they gave me my 30-day notice 30 days before the end of my contract. So I look for her. I finally find this bitch. I'm like, Diana, I need to know, was it Vince McMahon's idea to release me? Was it your idea? Was it Johnny Ace? Who was it? Well, things got very tricky at the end and we're not sure. And no. Someone had to make the decision to call me and say, and it's important for me to know if it was Johnny Ace, if it was Eric Bischoff, if it was Brad Siegel, if it was Vince McMahon, if it was Jim, who fucking released me? Well, it's very confusing. I was like, no, someone had to fucking say, fire him.
Right.
She goes, please don't hate me. I'm like, ship has sailed on that, sweetheart. I already fucking hate you. And I just walked away from her.
Huh.
She decided to do it. And I don't know what that was about. I'll never fucking know, but that's the problem. And when you let non-wrestling people and fucking people like lawyers and Brad Siegel make fucking executive decisions, and you cut out people like Bischoff, who maybe at the beginning wasn't a big fan, but became a big fan. But I read his book. It seems like he was a fan. But people who love this business, and you push people that love the business, and you use people that love the business is successful. You bring in writers like fucking Vince McMahon brings in. You bring in lawyers like cunt Diana Myers and fucking people like Brad Siegel, and businesses fucking fall apart. And Vince fucking will never learn it, man. He brings in shitty writers who don't like wrestling. He brings in fucking People like Brock Lesnar, who fucking hates wrestling, pushes him, and then they go and work for the competition and beat him at. And fucking thank God UFC's beating Vince in pay-per-views. Thank God. I hope Vince finally will fucking learn, but he won't.
Let's talk about your WWE run, because there's a lot of stuff I still want to talk about. As far as your WWE run, how did you get into the company?
Jim Ross, through Johnny Ace, got back in touch with me and said, don't worry, within days of the final show. So as soon as your 30 days is up, I'm going to meet with you. I met with him, but they offered me, went from $400,000 a year or so before. My first contract, they offered me $100. My agent got me $125. As soon as I got hurt, I had a no-cut deal. My agent didn't give me a no-cut deal unless I got hurt for 3 months. On the 3-month mark of my knee injury, I got the call. He said, either we're going to fire you or take a $25,000 pay cut. So I went down $100,000.
Okay. Once you got to the WWE locker room initially, did they resent any of the WCW guys, or were you ribbed a lot?
Not ribbed, but there was a definite dividing line.
Right.
A lot of them ate by themselves, and I was lucky enough. I knew Matt and Jeff to some extent. You know, I'd kept in touch somewhat with those guys. Believe it or not, I got along with Edge pretty well right off the bat. You know, and I was good friends with Hurricane, and he's real good friends with Matt and Jeff. So that kind of eased me into that group. So I wasn't so much part of that dividing line. But in the very beginning, man, we ate by ourselves. They pretty much dressed by themselves. We dressed in our own room. There was a huge, legit dividing line at the beginning that I think could have been used to, you know, in some extent, I think it played on TV that there was some legitimate, you know, fear and hatred and jealousy and all that other shit going on. He should have kept the company separate, man. We could sit here all day and talk about how it's fun.
Definitely. Your first angle in the company was with the Alliance. Were you surprised that the angles dropped so quick?
I was surprised they featured me. I was surprised they made me the Alliance MVP. Invasion MVP first. The pay-per-view was called Invasion. And they had me do a promo the next day of me saying, because I was part of the 8-man tag that won, and I did such a good job in that, I'm the Invasion MVP. That was their idea. They had the t-shirts printed up. And then it was Invasion MVP and quickly got switched to Alliance MVP. So that, to some extent, I kind of did that on my own too. I kept it going because I kept wearing the t-shirt. They didn't tell you really what to wear at first. I mean, sometimes they did. They told me to wear that t-shirt first, and I kind of did it my own. And then after a while, Vince threw somebody, Johnny Ace, said, isn't he wearing that shirt a little too long? That was the end of the shirt.
Right.
But, you know, then they put this US strap on me and take, but, dude, that angle, NWO lasted for over a year. The Invasion angle should still be going on, in my opinion. The company, he ended up splitting companies anyway. He did SmackDown and Raw. That should have been WCW and WWF, and it should have been once a year where we fight each other. I mean, again, yeah, I'm to this day dumbfounded that the angle's still not going on.
Now you teamed up with DDP in WWE. Do you think that hurt you at all?
Like I said, I think in many ways my relationship with Paige helped, and in many ways it hurt. Through all my experiences, through my mental treatment, and through 4 or 5 years of depression and fighting that, and kind of sitting back and looking at my life, I've really come to the realization that I really do fully believe everything happens for a reason, and the way it was supposed to happen, it happened. So to try to think of what would have happened if it didn't happen that way, it's fruitless. Any
memories of working with Simmons and Bradshaw?
I think Bradshaw liked me a lot. He always did that, what Scott Hall calls sack of shit.
Right.
Catches crossbody, falls back, fall away slam. I came up, I don't know if he ever did it before, I don't know if anyone did it. I came up with the idea of him doing it to me off the second rope. And I think because I came up with a move for him to do, I think that, I took his clothes on from hell real well, never bitched. I think Bradshaw had some respect for me. Simmons was easy to get along with, man. He was just fun. When we were going over, it was funny. We got to the building. We saw we were working on, but we didn't. They put little dots next to who was going to win. I didn't even look for that. I just assumed that tag champs they'll win it. Me and Paige and Bradshaw and Simmons go out to the ring. We start going over, and every idea me and Paige had was getting shot down. And halfway through them shooting everything down, I realized, holy fuck, I think we're winning this one. And I think that's why they old school. They think they should get 90% of the match because they're dropping the straps. But once I realized I was getting the strap, I would have gave them 100% of the match. I didn't give a fuck, So, yeah, I think they were upset that we were getting the straps, but, whatever.
Memories of the angles with Steph and Vince?
not so much the angles. Stephanie seemed very pleasant, man. Again, wrestling's weird. You always have to wonder how real someone's being. It's weird, and that's why wrestling's weird, man. The line, when you start blurring the line between fantasy and reality, what's real, what's not, what you can believe, what you can't believe. I mean, people like Pillman did it. Andy Kaufman did it. When you start blurring that line, man, things get weird, man. I was with Pillman during some weird times with him, and he would blur that line, and somehow him blurring that line made things even crazier, man. I saw weird things happen around that guy. When I was in the nut house, I saw it happen too. I think it's scary. I think that's why wrestling's such a fucked up business, man, because the whole thing is based on blurring that line. Whether we try to do it or not, it ends up happening. It ends up happening in the back, too, for all of us. We don't even know what's real, what's not. So with Stephanie, she was always very pleasant, and I never saw any reason to think she wasn't that way all the time, but I don't know, man. Yeah, gotcha. She's the spawn of the devil, so you got to wonder.
Memories of your matches with Taker?
Man, that there was something between Paige, and this is rumors. I heard when Paige first met with Vince, there was some kind of incident where, Vince got up or, whatever. Somehow he didn't expect a hug, and Paige gave him a hug. I think, and I heard that's how the whole Steve Austin, when Steve started hugging people in the ring, I heard that was like kind of a rib on what Paige did with Vince. He hugged him in the office, which I guess kind of caught Vince off guard. And they kind of made a goof of it, but then I kind of got over when Steve was doing that on the camera. Paige did something to rub either Taker or Vince or both the wrong way. I can tell you two stories that kind of back that up. Paige had this, a little pocket organizer, a little Palm Pilot or whatever the fuck they were back then. Now everyone has it on their phone, but back then that was kind of unique. And Paige is an A to Z guy, and he used to like to type up his matches in his Palm organizer. And he started telling me, well, this is the greatest thing you can have. And, if you have one, I have one. I type up the match. I can zoom it to you. You'll have it. And, Paige writing out the matches and going over it. That was fun with me. I didn't give a fuck. But apparently, Paige is doing a run-in on one of Taker's matches. And when Paige got to the bottom of the ramp, the mat was up, and he tripped. Hit his head on the fucking part of the ring that goes across the bottom. Came up, and it was a bloody mess, but still got in the ring and, did the run-in on Taker. He was bloody, man. And apparently Vince said, I wonder if Paige had written that into his Palm Pilot to remember to fall and break his head open.
Right.
So that line, and then if you watch the SummerSlam, it's so frustrating. When me and Paige won the tag belts, right afterwards, they're professional and they want to take pictures So as soon as me and Paige get to the back with the belts, the photographer's there and they want promo shots. And I see Taker walking by and I say, hey, Taker, I'm like, think I should get these pictures now or should I wait a while? He goes, because I was wrestling, me and Paige were wrestling him and Kane. We find out as soon as we get back through the curtain, we did the promo with Regal where he says, well, you guys got to defend these belts now. At SummerSlam, the title versus title against Taker and Kane because they have the WCW tag belts. So I know right away.
Right.
So joking, I say, should I take pictures now or should I wait a few weeks? He goes, I'd take them now. So I think, and when I talked about this before with Goldberg, finally, I'm a tag champ, I'm US champ, I have 2 belts, things are going great for me in WWE, I'm on SummerSlam, 3rd from the top. That's how you get paid, man. I got $13,000 for that fucking match. For fucking 8 minutes in the cage with Taker and Kane. 13 fucking grand for 8 minutes, man. And, it's like, finally, a cage match. I'd never been in a cage match before, so I had a million ideas. I wanted to blade, obviously. I thought all of us should blade, or at least me and Paige should blade. I asked Taker, I was like, if we're on top, both of us standing there, you choke slam me from the top rope into the ring. Or if you want, I'll be outside fighting, you grab me, I'll be on the outside choke slam me through the fuck. I figured with Taker, man, we could get away with anything.
Right.
So let him choke slam me through the announce table. Last ride, I said, you on the top rope. I'll climb up. Last ride from the top rope. Just fucking chuck me. He said, nope, they want you to leave Paige. They want you to be up, standing, and leave Paige. And it was all personal bullshit. Because they hate Paige so much, an angle that no one even picked up on. No fan really picked up on this. That his own partner leaves him to get beat up by 2 people. Because of that, now the blading, we didn't blade in that match, which I think hurts any cage match. I think Austin was fighting Angle in the main event, I think. And they were going to stop it because of bleeding. So I understood that. That makes sense. But then don't book a fucking cage match. Think ahead. Don't book a cage match if you can't bleed. I understand that. If I played deep, and I would have, man, I would have been covered. And then they don't stop that match, but they stop angles. Whatever. That makes sense. But I think because of either Taker's hatred or Vince's hatred for Paige, they fucking hurt that match bad. It's one of my worst matches ever. It's one of the biggest matches I've had. I woke up that Sunday for that pay-per-view in California. I think it was in California. And I opened up a USA Today, and fucking there's my picture in the middle of USA Today. I was like, holy fuck. And then it's one of my worst matches. I'm embarrassed about that match because those motherfuckers... No, it's definitely not Kane. Kane's one of the sweetest guys in the world. And I think Taker could have stepped up and said, let's make this match good instead of just a way to embarrass Paige. I thought that was lame. I don't know if it was Paige or Vince, but months and months later when Paige is already gone...
Right.
Me and Taker's getting ready. We pull up in the parking lot, and we're behind a fence where the fans are all lined up, screaming at us. Taker's fucking getting his stuff out. I get out of my car, I'm getting my stuff out. We're a few cars apart. But somebody fucking screams out, Taker, what do you think of DDP?
Huh.
Now he's on the spot, man. This fucking fan put him on the spot. And he looks at me, looks at the fan, he looks back at me, he goes, there's a certain way we do things here. Some people come in with their own ideas, and those people usually don't last.
Huh.
And that's all he said, man. He kind of looked at me and just kind of went, that's the truth. So, I mean, I think that kind of sums up Paige's run there in WWE.
You got to work with Tajiri?
Yeah, I dropped the US strap to him. I was very, I asked Johnny Ace, I'm like, is there a reason why I'm dropping it? Are they mad at me? Am I doing something wrong? You got plans for Tajiri? It's like, no, they just figured it's time to get off you and they want to give it on to Jerry. Like, fine. I was happy I was dropping it to someone I thought was real talented. I don't know him that well, but I felt like he liked the business. I was happy. I was happy for him.
What about Kurt Angle? Got to work with Kurt?
Yeah. Probably my best match. It was odd because I think it was a SmackDown that was live or something. I remember there was an hour delay. It might have been Raw, but it was an hour delay. So when we did it, we were like in the Central Time Zone. So when we did it, it was an hour later we got to watch it on regular TV in the locker room. So it was odd. So it was very rare that you get to do that. So we had the match. Putting together the match was great. Patterson helped us, I believe. Either Patterson or Briscoe. We were real happy with the way we put together. We fed off each other creating the match like I did with Saturn a lot. They were giving me a good shove at the time. I was U.S. champ. Everyone the three of us, me, Kurt, and whoever the agent was, felt like this was a match to elevate me. Kurt was already where he needs to be. To put me out there to get me elevated. That's why, when I'm getting 7 minutes, whatever it was. So we based the match around me getting over. And after the match, we hugged. He loved it. I loved it. Kurt got to sit on the meetings. I know. Next week, man, I just tell there's something different in the air.
Right.
So finally, it's like, because, a lot of times I'd ask, especially Kurt sits on the meetings. So I was like, hey, what did Vince think of my match? Hated it. What? Like, yeah, he wanted that match so you could put me over. He thought you were way too over in that match. And dude, literally from that moment on, my push was out the window. that was the end, man. That one match, and and I don't know. Kurt was nice, man. Right off the bat when I got there, but I heard he's, again, it's rumors, and I hate to base him on that, but I heard Kurt's two-faced. I heard a story about him. It's hard not to incriminate him. I'll say this much. I'll say when Jose Canseco came out with his book,
right,
and he stooched off a lot of the baseball players about steroids and shit. He was in the news a lot. I wasn't there at this point, but I heard a lot of wrestlers were calling Kurt Canseco. That's all I'm gonna say.
You tore your ACL. How did that come about?
First of all, we just started the 4th hour.
Yes.
The 4th tape. If you don't edit this down to 2 hours, you're a dumb fuck.
People are gonna love it.
No. I'm bored with me at this point. I never told this truth. I don't want to bury Jeff. But fuck it. Let's not bury him. I mean, fuck. Wrestling's physical and it happens. I was wrestling Jeff Hardy weeks before this happened. I think it was on my run of 29 out of... It's on my blog somewhere. I think I did 27 out of 31 days on the road, 25 matches or something, one stretch. It was when we did a charity match, softball game in Shea Stadium. We did Atlantic City. I was just on the road forever. I went down to OVW, did a bunch of stuff. I wrestled Jeff Hardy, I think in Atlantic City, and he did and we did the Pillman thing during this time too. That's why that run was so tough. Man. It was literally, I think, on the road 27 out 31 days, 25 matches, something like that. So I was fucking beat up and tired anyway. And Jeff did his swanton, and he landed low, real low, on my leg. And I think it bruised the muscle so badly that the muscle at that point almost shut down. So anytime I was going up steps or anything, the leg would give out because the muscle just wasn't working anymore. So I don't think he hurt the ACL. I think he just hurt the muscle bed. And then since the muscle wasn't working, when I was working, they brought up Randy Orton to do a golf match. And I was wrestling. They were, believe it or not, putting me over Randy Orton in a golf match. And he gave me the reverse atomic drop. And when I landed on both feet, man, it just popped right out. And I think it's just because the muscle usually will help brace you, and it wasn't there to brace me. So all that pressure went down on the ACL.
You went down to OVW after that.
Yep.
Was the office pretty supportive of you? Just wanted you to come back, or?
Yeah, I mean, whoever it is, I forget the guy's name. It doesn't matter. Yeah, when they sent me to OVW, I just saw it as something normal. I went down there. I love working with Cornette. I love working with Johnny Jeter.
Cena was down there, I think, right? Or was he already up
there?
there?
Yeah, Cena was there. I worked with him a little bit. When I went down there, I think, yeah, he was still there.
Did you know Cena was going to be a big star?
When I was still wrestling, it was during that period, the 27 days, the third one. They sent me to OVW with Big Show to kind of do a little scouting mission. Me and Johnny Ace got along well, so Johnny said, go down there. And he gave me a sheet of every guy's name and wanted me to give a report on everybody.
Right.
So I went down there with a critical eye. Lesnar was hurt at this point, and so was Shelton. I didn't get to see either one of those guys. Who I did see was Randy and Cena. Now, I gave the report to Johnny of everybody down there, but I went on my blog, and I was so impressed by Randy Orton at this point. I literally said, and Randy to this day has quoted it, and this is, he'd never done anything on TV. I'd never even seen him before. I said, I've seen the future of the WWE and wrestling, and his name is Randy Orton. And I wrote a whole blog, I think Randy's going to be huge. And I said, if it ain't going to be Randy, probably John Cena will be a big star.
There you go.
But let them use this, whoever scouts they have right now.
Right.
You can go back to the 10 guys I hired in WCW. Hurricane, Shannon Moore, Jamie Noble, Tony Mamaluke, Christian York, Joey Matthews. I mean, Bischoff came to me and said, find 10 cruiserweights. At least 7, 8, maybe 9 of them went on to do bigger things after I hired them.
Definitely.
And I'm and Vince, I don't know who he had scouting, but god damn.
When you came back, you re-injured yourself. Was it Lance Cade against Lance?
Yeah. We worked in a barn, literally a barn, literally cows and horses is where we had to change. This was for, it wasn't OVW, it was the other HWA. And
for her, okay, yeah.
Yeah, Heartland Wrestling
Yeah.
was also one of the developments. Went there, was working with Lance in a barn, and I had a cut on the shoulder, a little cut. I didn't think much of it. And he threw me out of the ring. I just landed on it, but in the mud, basically. And before I knew it, it got infected. And, I was literally just coming back from the knee. I was about to go on TV, and I had to call him up and say, hey, I just went to the doctor, and they said I have a bad... At the time, they thought it was a dislocation.
Right.
Because the infection had gotten so bad in there, it pushed the bone away from the joint. So when they x-rayed it, it showed up as dislocated. They thought that's all that was wrong with it. When they cut it open, they drained over a cup of pus out. And they said I passed out for 2 days. My friends had to rush me to the hospital. And the doctor woke me up. I thought it was Sunday night. It was actually Tuesday morning. And he said, we got to operate. I said, I want a second opinion. He goes, you don't have time.
Wow.
So it ended up, they had to cut it open. And then they had to leave it open. Because if they would have closed the scar, it would have, if anything was left in there, any infection was left in there, it would have got trapped in there.
Right.
So they had to leave it open. It had to close on its own. So it took over a month to close on its own. I went in weighing 240. 6 days later, I weighed 208. I lost 32 pounds in 6 days. It was brutal.
Now, you wrestled some house shows as Mortis. Was there any thought of bringing that back?
Oh, yeah. It's in the magazine.
Okay.
When I came back, I figured I needed something new. They kept telling me I need a new look. That's when I came up with that fucking horrible beard thing I did. They wanted me to cut my hair. It's like, I really wasn't cool with cutting the hair. I really didn't want to. And then I said, Stephanie liked the idea of Mortis. I said, well, the Mortis outfit, it works a lot better with the long hair coming out the top of the mask. So she goes, all right, don't cut your hair. She goes, but we still want a new look. So I did the stupid beard thing. It was like a staircase. But, it was in the magazine. They said Mortis is coming back. And then I did a bunch of dark matches. It seemed to be getting over all right, and they just didn't do it.
Kiboshed it. Whose idea was it for the Boy George skit, and how did that come about?
I don't know where that came about. I was told about it by Paulie Dangerously, Paul Heyman. And he told me straight up, man, when the way he described it was odd. And it was during my injuries when I came up with the idea of coming out of the closet nationally. I thought the whole openly gay first wrestling. I read an article about in the Sports Illustrated, and he said, "Is a sport ready for an openly gay athlete?" And if you want to read the article, Tiger Woods is on the cover with a red shirt. I don't know what month of day, whatever. But it basically said, entertainment, it almost helps you if you're gay, but sports just ain't ready. And man, it just clicked. I'm like, what's the perfect sports entertainment should be first then? We should usher this in. So that's when I pitched the idea, and I pitched it to a friend, and he's still with the company, so I don't want to mention him. And he pitched it, and man, I was led to believe it got to Vince, and Vince didn't like it. So, and I was kind of told, don't talk about it or whatever. So I was like, whatever. So when I got back after all of that, and Paulie, it was just the verbiage he used. It was weird. It was like, we're going to build this closet. You're going to come out of the closet. I was like, all right. Then they want you to sing like Boy George. They want you to sound like a real fag.
Right.
I'm like, man, I just took it as a message. I was like, whatever. So I did it. I was like, well, the one way to save this, either I could refuse, and I think that's what they wanted me to do, was to refuse. I'm like, no, I'll do it. I'm like, I'm going to go real intense, man. I'm going to beat the fuck out of Taker. Like, that's the only way to save it, man. If I don't look real intense and mean when I do it, it's going to be lame. So we did the angle, and even Taker said, man, he goes, I watch it, because the next week I saw him. I was like, what do you think? He goes, man, your intensity was fucking awesome. He's like, try to keep that intensity up. So I think they thought I'd bitch about it. I went back and said, why don't we keep doing it? And I asked Taker, I said, what do you think? You think I should maybe stay with the Boy George thing? And he's like, it can't hurt. So I went to them. I said, I'd like to keep doing the Boy George thing. I'm just going to be real intense with it. And I don't think they like that. I think they thought it would piss me off, and then I kind of shoved it back in their face and, no, let's do it. And then from that point on, it was literally dark matches. And
then you were released.
Yeah.
Was it on amicable terms, or?
When Johnny Ace called me, I knew it was going. Well, what happened basically was I was home for the holidays. This would have been, I guess, when I get there, 2003. Christmas 2003, 2004. I got the call from Bob Clark, I think was the guy's name. He used to be the guy who dealt with you if you were hurt. And he said, we need you to go down to OVW again. I'm like, go down to OVW again? I'm like, what for? He's like, to get trained. I'm like, to get trained? I'm like, am I helping out with the young guys down there, or am I going down to get trained? And I said, I've been doing this,
right,
for over 10 years now, and you guys must have liked me. You put the U.S. title and the tag title on me, and gave me a good push. I was like, am I doing something wrong? It's like, no, they just want you to see them up down there. Like, all right. And this was at the holidays. I said, well, I already told all you guys that I have a real estate deal in upstate New York that I was going to take care of right after the holidays. That's why I was like, look at travel. You guys will fly me in and out of New York for the next couple of weeks. I can't pass up this deal. It was a sweet fucking real estate deal. So I didn't get down to OVW in time, I guess, for them. And then when I was finally done with the real estate deal, I had to fly me to Florida so I can get my car, because they said it was indefinitely. I can't rent a fucking car indefinitely.
Right.
You guys cut my salary already. I was like, so I flew down to Florida, and then they called me down there. They're like, how come you're not in OVW yet? Like, I told you guys about the real estate deal, and I just got here. And then a few days later, Johnny called me and said, they'll let you go. Jeez, whatever. And I knew it was, I knew what it was.
Right.
The Boy George thing didn't work to make me quit. Now they're going to fucking make me go to OVW and, take a shot at me and say I'm the, whatever. So I was like, what? I probably would have never showed up in OVW. I don't know if I would have ever went there. I was like, if they're going to treat me like this, if this is how they're going to deal with me, fuck them.
You announced shortly after that about retiring. Did you plan on staying retired?
Yeah, because that especially because the WrestleMania, because one of the first things, and I do have that on tape, by the way. I don't know if it's legal for me to tape Johnny Ace, but I knew that phone call was coming, so I do have it on tape. When he fired me, one of the first things I asked him was, number one, why? He said, the writers don't have anything for you. I said, well, then maybe you guys should fire the writers, because I do whatever you guys ask.
That's a good point.
And he told me about all the guys they were going to fire at that point, which was weird. And then I asked, the next thing I asked was, can I please go to WrestleMania? I'm like, probably the last time I see a lot of the guys. This was February, they called me to fire me. WrestleMania was at the end of March, early April. It was in the Garden.
Right.
I was going to be home anyway because I just got fired. So I was going to go back to New York and be with my family. So they approved. He said, yeah, no problem. You still be under contract anyway. I was getting paid till May. They had to give me 3 months.
Severance.
Yeah. So you're still kind of under contract. Because we could pay you all at once, but you can't,
right.
work, or we'll pay you along the way. So I don't know why I picked what I did, but I'd still be officially under contract till May. So it just felt so final, that WrestleMania. Full circle. 2 guys I really respect had the world title at the end of it. I felt this whole completion thing of, it kind of started here when Hogan won it. Here it is, fucking whatever it is, exactly 20 years later, fucking I'm in the Garden again, saying goodbye to friends, thanking Vince. It just felt right. So the retirement felt very final at that point. But then afterwards I started thinking, I never got to come out. I kind of felt like it was important to do.
So that's when you decided to come out?
Yeah, I want to get back in the ring, get in good shape, and then come out. And I really did believe Vince would do it. I thought he had balls. I thought he would see an opportunity to do something that no other sport's doing.
Do you think people... Go ahead. I don't want to cut you off.
Promote an openly gay athlete in a legitimate circumstance of being in a locker room. Those are the things that we could... And the way I pitched, I said, we can do legitimate polls of the other wrestlers. Do you mind having Kane in the locker room with you? And then give that to USA Today the weekend of a pay-per-view. And those are the ideas that Johnny Ace loved when I pitched it to them. Because I did pitch it to Vince way before I did it.
Right. And
I pitched it to Jeff Jarrett before I did it. And they both claimed they loved it. And then they both pussied out.
Do you think people knew that you were gay in the business and just...
Oh, yeah. There was rumors.
I know Raven said...
Yeah, there were a lot of rumors, especially when I didn't seek out the job of hiring a bunch of good-looking cruiserweights, but Eric gave it to me.
Right.
And he specifically said, good-looking, young, they have to look around 18, they got to be ready for TV, they got to be Hollywood, they got to look the part, and they got to look young. When I hired them, I happened to just buy a house, too. I had 6 bedrooms. I had a basement apartment. I had plenty of room. A lot of these guys weren't making money, and they weren't paying them much. If you didn't live in the Georgia area, you got $40,000 a year. If you lived in the Georgia area, you only got 20 or 25. AJ Styles is another one I tried to hire. He actually turned me down. Jason Cross pissed me off, so I didn't hire him. Jimmy Wang, I hired him. But those were the Georgia guys. That's why I remember that. So the guys that were not, they weren't making that much money, and they had to do it, 5 days a week at power plant stuff. So, I opened my house, but I think a lot of wrestlers saw that as weird. I had a bunch of young cruiserweights living with me.
Right.
You could ask any of if I fooled around with them. I didn't.
No, I wasn't going to ask you that.
No, but, people are going to assume that, and I definitely don't want them saddled with that. There's been a lot of guys that when I was coming out, man, I was scared for them. Guys that claimed to be my friends and that were already in WWE, and I thought, there was going to be, people talk, and if I was friends with Kidman or friends with Hurricane or whoever, then all of a sudden I'm out. Now people are going to wonder,
Right. Did you lose any friends?
No, I don't want to. And I did not fool around with a single pro wrestler. I almost fooled around. I think I probably could have at the Ready to Rumble filming. We both ended up in a hot tub together, and it was close.
Was it a worker?
Yeah. But we both, I think we both thought, I'm trusting this guy. If I out myself to him and we do fool around, there's a chance he'll tell other people before we know it's out. I think we both thought that. We both
Did you think that person was gay? Or?
Oh, I know he is.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Is he in the business still today?
Yes, I believe he is. Yeah, I just read something about it.
Okay. I guess, why didn't you come out any sooner?
Just pussy, I guess.
Right.
I think I was afraid. It's a huge process, man. It's hard. I needed that therapy, man. I thought I was ready. I'm telling you, man, I got to look back and say everything happens for a reason. Everything that happened was supposed to happen. If they would have done it in 2001, 2002, when I wanted to do it, God only knows what would have happened. Man, mentally, I didn't realize it was going to be such a big deal. Because when I started doing it, coming out, I came out in therapy first, then to my family. And without therapy, I don't think I would have been able to deal with it. And to come out and then subject myself to whatever angle Vince would have put me in. And my gut is he would have fucking leaned me towards heel, and that's not what I wanted to do. I wanted to come out and be neutral and let the fans decide, but I think he would have leaned me towards heel. To have 20,000 people chanting faggot at me, I don't know if I could have dealt with it. Back then, now I could. I don't give a fuck. But back then, I don't think I could have.
Did you ever have to pretend you were straight by hooking up with a groupie or anybody?
Oh shit, yeah, tons of times. Especially the ones with the biggest mouths. Little and figured, nah. If there was a rat that I knew talked a lot,
right?
I can tell you one story about X-Pac. Me and my friend were in the lobby with this girl who I knew I could fuck her anytime I want. And my buddy had a camera, so I'm like, yeah, this will work because the camera might, if it gets spread that this girl's blowing me or I'm fucking her, I'll erase most doubts.
Right.
X-Pac was in the lobby with us when we were talking to this whore, and he knew it was, one of us was going to probably bang her. So my buddy goes up with me, and the girl gives me a blowjob. And next day, X-Pac's in the elevator, and he sees my buddy. He goes, hey, what happened with that girl last night? My buddy goes, oh, she blew Kanyon. I filmed it. And X-Pac's like, really? I always thought Kanyon was gay. So I was like, all that work.
Right.
And, the first wrestler to hear about it, that's weird. I thought Kanyon was gay. Wow. So I kind of thought it worked a little bit, but I'm like, well, I guess the rumor's already out there.
Any of the guys ever question you as far as like being
straight up? Terry Taylor, I'll give him credit, man. Out-asked me. I lied to him, said I wasn't.
How did that come about?
Me and Terry were pretty close. I went over to his house a couple of times and met his kids, met his wife, went out to eat. He ordered Chinese one time. I went over there. We were friendly. And Terry does not have that part of the brain that says, don't ask that. It might hurt someone's feelings. Or,
right.
Don't say that. It's going to bury you. I mean, I think that's Terry's biggest problem. Well, one of his biggest attributes, whatever way you want to look at it. But, oh, by the way, are you gay? Just wondering. It's like, no, why do you ask? Because you have all those cute cruiserweights in your house. No. And then I think Raven always constantly asked me. It's funny, and then once I did come out, because I still had friends up in WWE. Once I came out, I asked a couple of my friends, I'm like, so what was the reaction up there? And I found out two names that I asked a lot before I came out. Regal used to ask everyone that knew me if I was gay or not. And Jericho asked a lot about me before I came out if I was gay. So that's the only thing my friends, the Stooges, told me, was that those guys asked a lot before it happened.
Right.
But other than that, it was not much of an issue.
What happened in 2004 when you got arrested?
Real simple. I don't drink. I'm not even supposed to drink these, but fuck it.
Dude, you had for the record, can I show that?
Yeah.
He's had 4 energy drinks, including a coffee before that. So I thought you'd be running around the hotel room, but.
And that's bipolar. This triggers mania. That's why they tell me not to do it. And bipolar is either you're manic, which is, if you ever did coke, it's like doing the best coke in the world. I've stayed up 3 days without doing a single drug, and not even drinking this, just being manic. But like anything, man, life balances, man. If you're gonna be that high and that happy and that upbeat, and I think that's where a lot of my creativity comes. A lot of people that are creative are bipolar, and when they're manic, is when their creativity comes out. But life balances out, man. If you're gonna be up for 3 days and happy, you're gonna hit a bad depression. I'm not supposed to do this, but when I'm doing any kind of interview, man, this is nothing compared to what I did before Howard Stern.
I was going to ask you, let's talk about Howard as far as that came about. How did that all come about? And were you surprised that Flair called in?
Shocked. And you know what? I haven't watched it in a long time.
Do you think somebody put him up to that, by the way?
If you listen to the interview, I haven't watched it in a long time. I watched it right after I did it, and I'm on right now, at least on my brother's cable system, favorite guests, is that appearance. And Flair says a bunch of times in there, which I didn't catch the first time, that they had him do it because they knew the way I respected him. So it was definitely intentionally done. They knew the respect level I had for Rick, and I think that was another attempt by WWE to say, all right, here's his idol. Let's even take his idol away from him. And the funny thing is, I was happy it was Rick, because it was fun and it was interesting. And in my opinion, anyone could argue it, but I thought I beat him. If you go head to head, I thought I handled myself, and I thought he had to backtrack a lot. And I think I kind of knew Flair had to do that, and Cena had to bury me when he was on too. And when I did see Rick, the first time I saw Rick after that was at Moolah funeral. And it was immediate hugs and how you been. And there was definitely no animosity on either end, at least that I could tell. And I think he knew he had to do it, and he probably realized I knew he had to do it. But, I think he understands how much I respect and love him.
What are your thoughts on Artie Lang? Was that all sincere? That whole about giving him your phone number and
Oh yeah, and there was, for those who didn't see it, the first appearance was just an appearance, talking about gay and everything. Then I made the bet with Artie. If the Mets went further in the playoffs, he had to make out with Blue Iris, who's a 60-year-old stripper.
Right.
Mets went further. He made out with her, so I came in for that, and that's when Flair called in. Then a few weeks later, I called in, or a month or so, a few months later, whatever it was, and because I told the story that after the Flair appearance, that was such a high. And I woke up that day, and a couple of days before, real depressed.
Mm-hmm.
Did this, got myself high for the appearance, and the whole thing with Flair got me on a high, high level. As soon as I left the studio, me and my brother were getting on the subway to go. You know, I was coming back down to Atlanta, so I had to go back to Queens, get my stuff, and go to the airport. He was going to work. And when we were standing there, I went from such a high, I crashed so bad. As that train was coming, I was manic and depressed at the same time. That's why bipolars kill themselves, because they have the energy to do it because they're manic, but the depression slips in there. And it was very surreal, but as the train's coming, if my brother wasn't there, I would have jumped in front of the train. No doubt about it. He's the only thing that stopped me because I didn't want him to see that. And when I called in and told that story, Artie jumped in and started saying, I can help this guy. I want to talk to him off the air and stuff. And Howard and Robin were giving him help. The reason he felt he could help me, which he just revealed in his book, and he begged me never to tell anyone, but I'm assuming it's all right now, he told me he tried to kill himself on that phone call. He called me after the show.
Wow.
And that's why he felt he can relate, because he'd already tried it. And his agent, and he never told his parent, his mom or his sister, and he told his agent, and his agent had never revealed that because it could hurt. So he trusted me with that, and that meant a lot. Me and him did keep in touch quite a bit, and now that he revealed it in the book, I feel comfortable doing it. But that's why, and Robin and Howard were giving him hell. How can an overweight heroin addict, slob help this poor ex-wrestler? That's why, because he's been there and he knew what it was like. So, yeah, that was legit.
Did you get to meet Howard after your shaking was over, or were you rushed out?
Yeah, no, both times.
Was he cool with you?
Awesome.
Yeah.
He's different, though.
He's very different.
Yeah, he's not
He's quiet.
Oh, my God. So is Austin, man. That's another thing people don't. When we first got to WWE, we had a huge meeting with all their guys, all our guys. It was in the Garden, the Madison Square Garden, and everyone stood up. Taker stood up, and Vince and Pat Patterson, Briscoe. Everyone had some words about this whole angle and what was going to happen and what WWE was like. And man, Austin was shy. You could tell he didn't want to do it. When he did it, he was real quick. And still, Stone Cold's a shy guy, I think, naturally.
What are your thoughts on the lawsuit that's going on today?
The lawsuit?
The lawsuit with Raven and.
I was told not to talk about it. We're filming this before the end of whatever happens with the lawsuit. I think the facts stand for themselves, man. I think if you go online, just look up what it means to be an independent contractor versus employee, it's night and day. They feel that because we signed a contract that says we're independent contractors, that's going to hurt us. Vince could have had me sign a contract that said I was a fucking 2,000-pound elephant, and I would have signed it because, first of all, he's a monopoly. Number two, I wanted to work there at any cost. Doesn't mean I'm a 2,000-pound fucking elephant. You know what I'm saying? He could have had me sign anything. And he's in a position to make you do it. Just because you sign something that says you're something doesn't make you something. And I think that's a lame aspect of this. But if that's the law, it's the law. Whatever's going to happen is going to happen. There's a lot of reasons why I did it. Number one, Raven needed people to do it, and he had somewhat trouble finding people because people are afraid of Vince on many levels. Vince is controversial, man, and when it comes to the law, he's impressive. Huh. He does well, but there's also other things people feel. And you go back, I read a book recently, man, I forget, Wrestling Babylon, I think it's called, and they talk about the Snooker incident back in '84, where they believe Snooker might have killed a girl. I wasn't there, I can't know, but they talk about how Vince covered that up, man. That's a powerful man if he was able to do that. So people are afraid of Vince. So, number one, Raven had trouble getting people to do it. And, class action lawsuit, usually the lawyers want a few people filing, not just one. So I did it for that. I really did feel it would help the business if we won. It'd help a lot of the guys, definitely. I think what Vince is doing is wrong and illegal, and I think... I really did feel, publicity off. I figured it would be publicity as well. Unfortunately, I'm not allowed to really talk about it. So that'll win. As soon as it's definitely over, I'll shoot 100% on it. We'll see where it goes.
One of my last few remaining questions. You once said that Bret Hart told you that the whole Montreal was a work. Can you elaborate on that?
That's why the internet's interesting. Because if you go back and listen to the actual interview, I never said he said it was work.
Okay.
Exactly what happened was Bret really liked me for some reason. When if you go back and watch this online, this is one of the few things online that Vince hasn't pulled yet. I wrestled Booker T as Mortis in Louisiana. And one of the spots was Booker was going to be sitting on the top. I jump up for the top rope Hurricane Rana. He was going to stand up and powerbomb me off the top. I got nervous. I was going to knock him back. I really thought when I jumped up to land, he was sitting on the top turnbuckle. I thought I'd knock him backwards. So I leaned back. As I'm leaning back, he goes to powerbomb me, and I lean too far, and I spike myself. Crowd goes fucking nuts. So it's basically a top rope powerbomb on the back of my head. But I'm very lucky. He had a very flexible neck, so it didn't hurt me. And in Louisiana, the Superdome or whatever that's called, it's the longest distance from our locker room to the curtain anywhere. They literally have to take those little golf carts to bring us back and forth. And Brett just got there. The first person to ask if I was all right when I got through the curtain was Brett. And Brett sat me down on the ball one night and said, I want to work an angle with you. He's like, I pitched a bunch of things, but they're not doing it for some reason. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. There's no reason for Brett to lie to me, especially back then.
Right.
At one point, Brett asked to drive with me, which I thought was weird. And the reason he wanted to drive with me was Wrestling with Shadows was coming out, the whole story behind the Screwjob, the documentary that was being filmed. He'd already let Piper and Hogan watch it. And he wanted my opinion if I thought that was exposing the business too much. So he tells me the whole story, exactly what happened with the Screwjob, told me what the documentary's like, and asked me my opinion. Now, the whole time, I thought from day one it was work. I thought Brett was in on it from day one.
Right.
And right after it happened, I went back and I looked at the tapes before the incident and way back to when he thought he was going to retire, but then somehow they got him back with a 20-year contract. So the whole thing, I kind of figured out that I thought once he decided he wanted to leave, they came up with this angle, and then he could leave. So, and then it played out the way it did. And I didn't want to insult Brett and say, hey, I think you're lying, it's a work. So after the day after, we drove, the next day at the house show, I really wanted to ask him, man. I figured this was my one opportunity, but I didn't want to be a dick. So I just said, if Vince had presented this to you as an angle months before it actually happened, would you have done it? Because everybody turned out all right. Vince became a huge heel. You got to leave without really losing the strap. Sean gets the strap. Everybody worked out.
Right.
And he didn't say yes and no. He went, shh, and walked away. Dude, that could be anything. I mean, I took it like I had it on the head. Don't tell nobody. He could have been working me. He's a worker. Maybe he was trying to make me think it was real.
There you go.
But I'm telling you, what I fully believe and what I believe he meant is, yes, you nailed it, but don't tell nobody. Meltzer loves saying, well, if Chris knew this all along, number one, I want to work for Vince. So why the fuck am I going to come right out and Brett just trusted me with that? Why am I going to run out and say, Brett just told me? The longer I started doing it, I'm very unlike most of the boys. I never did drugs. That's why I still do this. Drank somewhat when I wrestled, but not that heavily. I don't think I have a reputation for that. But I didn't do any drugs. I have a very different morality and mentality than most of the boys. It got to the point where I said, number one, I want to work for Vince, so I'm not going to expose this. I'm sure he doesn't want to expose it. Number two, this is probably the greatest work of all time in wrestling. I mean, if people believe it's controversial, whatever, I don't want to be the one to expose it. And when I did expose it, I didn't go on that O show, with Donnie Abreu and those guys. I didn't go on there to be controversial.
Right.
We were talking about how the gay angle and how I thought Vince liked work shoot angles. And I just brought that up and say, oh, it's definitely work. Brett was in on it. I was saying that not to be controversial, not to expose what Brett did. It just kind of slipped, and I was making a different point. And I was shocked when it made headlines. And then I realized, oh, fuck, I did kind of just expose something. I didn't feel that bad about it, to be honest with you. No one's going to, people who believe it, and people who don't. But I'm telling you what happened. And Brett's, from what I know, never denied that he did that with me. Brett's a little bit of maybe a different person now than he was, but maybe he doesn't remember or does remember. But bottom line is, I don't know if he ever denied it. And I'm telling you, there's no reason for me to lie. He fucking did that.
All right. Looking back, your favorite match? Favorite moment in the business?
The crowd's tough, man. New York sucks. I love New York, but that fucking Garden crowd sucks. But, dude, to walk out after all the shit I've been through, after 9 years in the business at that point, to finally make it to the Garden, get to wrestle a friend of mine, Jeff Hardy, walk out in the Garden, the most historic building on the planet, and get to wrestle that, man. Nothing like it, man. I was like a kid. It was unfucking real.
Now you're back in New York, and you just recently announced that you're going to start taking bookings again, right?
Yep. Yeah. Just northeast, within 250 miles of New York. That waits to drive. I got sick of flying. I got sick of doing indie shots where I don't know if the guys can get me an airline ticket and blocking out that time. This way, either I don't make the drive if I feel like it's a screw job, or if I make a 250, 3-hour drive, and I get there and the guy fucks me, so I wasted 6 hours. Who gives a fuck?
Are you happy in life right now?
Happiest I think I've ever been in my life.
Healthy? Mentally?
Yeah, I think so. Man, therapy's a great thing, man. And you know what? Vince was forced into, I think, for PR reasons, to agree to pay for rehab for guys. He should pay for more than that. He should offer psychological counseling to the guys on the road. And to, if he's gonna say, if you're gonna be a drug addict and an alcoholic, I'm gonna pay for that. To not pay for psychological counseling is almost rewarding someone for being worse, or for doing something less ethical, or for being weaker. I think personally, if he's serious, if he's not just doing it for PR, if he really wants to help the boys out, have a psychological counselor on the road with these guys, man. I think after a while, I don't think guys. When my doctor told me I had to go, my mom said, "You're not crazy. Why are you going?" My dad, they didn't want me to go. They didn't know I tried to kill myself, but my doctor did, and he threatened to tell my parents if I didn't go. Thank God. But there's a stigma that I think is horrible, and it ends up killing people. I think Vince, at least if he's serious about helping people, offer psychological counseling to the boys, because we need it. Because we're in a business that feeds fucking dementia, feeds bipolar, feeds, just when you mess with reality, man, things happen.
Well, I definitely want to thank you for being here today, and it was a great interview.
Thanks.
And I wish you the best of luck in anything you do.
Thank you, buddy.
Cool. Thank you.
Watch thousands of exclusive shoot interviews right now on TitleMatchNetwork.com.